All right, guys. So within the 100th episode right now, well, first of all, let's introduce who's actually here talking about this topic. So I am Paul Doski, as always, from the Everything Horror Podcast, and with me, as always, with my beautiful fiance,
Tessa Baker.
And with us today, we got the man behind the information, as I'm going to call it, because without him, I mean, I really don't think I would know too much of what's going on. And on that note, please welcome Danno, all the way back from Danno of the Dead, also the writer for 52 Weeks of Horror. Welcome back, Dan. Nice to have you again.
Hey, thank you, Paul. Tess, good to talk to you again.
Yeah,
and
it's a pleasure, Dan.
I don't know that I'm the definitive source on this. I'm just the loudest one at the moment. So,
well, Dan, so tell us, me and Tess would know a little bit.
Yes,
come shed some light for those that don't even know what the fuck is going on with the hashtag horror. I mean, I know a couple people that I've spoken to know about it, but they don't know. And then I have a couple other people that really have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. So I'll let you take the floor.
Yeah, it started out as kind of just a curious thing. My editor over at 52 Weeks of Horror, Haley, she texted me and was asking me if I had seen the message that popped up when you typed in hashtag horror and did a search. So I did it, and it popped up with this thing that said, "Can we help?" And then it said, "Post with your words or tags are possibly are." I'm sorry. Let me just pull it up. It says, "Can we help? Post with words or tags you're searching for often encourage behavior that can cause harm and even lead to death. If you're going through something difficult, we'd like to help." And then below it says, "Get support, see posts anyway, or cancel." And when you go to see posts anyways, it gives you the top rated posts. And, top rated posts on Instagram, they're almost always either companies that buy a lot of advertising, or they're these, I think the term is influencer that they have on there. And that's what they show. So when you go to recent to just see who's posted what in the hashtag, you get a new window that says, "We've hidden posts for hashtag horror to protect our community from content that may encourage behavior that can cause harm and even lead to death." And of course, it doesn't give you the option to push through this time. It simply says learn more, and it gives you redirection to sites that can help you find professional help if you're thinking of harming yourself or others.
So real quick, Dan, can you please elaborate of how the hell horror is like a suicidal thing? Like,
I failed.
Or Tessa, do you know?
I fail to see how hashtag horror is going to make somebody want to go out and off themselves or whatever.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous what's becoming of censorship nowadays. They're censoring just about fucking everything.
Yeah, and that's really the big issue here, because about a week after I saw this, I came across a couple of different articles. My sister is a psychiatrist, or she's going to kill me for this. A psychiatrist or psychologist, I forget which one. Either way, she's works in the mental health field, always sends me all these interesting articles and things. And because I follow so much of what she sends, Facebook decides to stalk me and suggest other things that I might like. And I came across a couple of articles that have been posted in psychology journals talking about how horror is actually beneficial to healthy brain development. So it's when you've got experts that say that horror is healthy and that it encourages, brain development, it's kind of hard to swallow a company telling you the exact opposite about it. And I think that's the big problem, especially because we started, Haley and I started playing under our personal accounts with different hashtags, that should be popping up with these kind of flags. Hashtags like violence, radicalism. Most recently, I did true crime and crime scene, all of which take you to some very graphic, very real images. In fact, when I did violence, the same night we started talking about the horror hashtag, one of the first images in their top rated section was a video of an individual. He'd been in some sort of accident, and it was very clear that he had been killed, and it was extremely gruesome and completely uncensored. And I did the responsible thing as far as Instagram is concerned. I went ahead and reported it. The image is still up there, and that was 3 weeks ago. But thank God they didn't show a woman's bare breast or anything with horror, because then we'd need to start canceling accounts and getting some psychiatrists involved to help out with these disturbed individuals.
Yeah, here's a pretty disturbing one right now that I'm looking at where, oh my God, like, I just don't even know what to even say to this. Like, I'm looking at the crime scene hashtag right now for the top.
Oh, yeah.
Row, and it's like two guys wearing gloves. I want to say definitely wearing a face mask, and it looks like a decomposed corpse.
Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, because I'm very much death positive. We're all gonna die, and I feel that horror really helps us come to terms with with a lot of the things that are involved in contemplating and understanding our own mortality. Hell, I was interested for several years in becoming a mortician and a crime scene investigator, and so this is just another day to me. But when you're talking about people that are disturbed, people that have tendencies towards acts of violence and harm against themselves or others, they're not looking for the B-movie blood and gore. They're going out there looking for actual images, actual stories, and it's great. I love seeing all the stuff after these movies have started getting popular this year about Ted Bundy and Charles Manson. Just how much you can find on both of them searching through Instagram and social media. And so much of it is completely uncensored, but you come across something from a horror movie like Us or Hereditary or some of the classics like The Hills Have Eyes. When you start looking for horror as an art form, then you're running into these censorship blocks, and with the way it's worded is just even worse, because it's worded and phrased to suggest that not only is the genre art form and the community that's grown up around it something that should be, feared, something that should be completely taboo and repressed, but the people that enjoy it are sick individuals that need mental health intervention. And I think that's the larger problem. Is it's not just censorship at this point. It's censorship with the added insult of saying that something is wrong with the people in the community.
Yeah, kind of like it's saying, like, okay, you like horror, you like this death stuff, you like this gore, you like this whatever, but now it's not okay. And what you are looking at, or yeah, I guess we could go like this. Like what you're looking at is something that can somehow inflict thoughts of suicidal and death, but when really we're looking at maybe somebody's practical effects, maybe, or something, how they or what other stuff that's out there? Horror cosplay, where they're trying to dress up and create their own image of a favorite character of theirs. There's horror photography. I mean, there's horror film, horror music. I mean, I can go on. And
yeah. Well, and it's going to hurt independent artists is all it's going to do. Like my career as a writer and entertainer, it's still very much in its early stages, but it didn't go anywhere until my wife encouraged me to start getting on social media to promote myself. And that's what a lot of these people are doing. And when they tag something as horror, unless you're just looking specifically for horror music or horror arts and crafts or horror whatever, then you just want to hit horror and see what cool things you can find. And unless you're paying for the advertising through these sites, and unless you're paying for follows or becoming one of those influencers, then effectively what it's doing is it's cutting out the independent artist in favor of the corporate dollar.
Yes. And for somebody like me, per se, who is running this podcast, I mean, we will pretty soon be buried with the censorship of other type of big names, because now nobody really gives a shit about the small guys anymore. It's got to be about the big guys, because they're the ones with the money, they're the ones with the high followers, they're whatever. And I think one of the scary things that I even heard from, it was either you or one of the people at 52 Weeks of Horror, was talking about a very interesting theory where not only has hashtag horror been affected by this of being censored, but they brought up how maybe Instagram could probably start targeting other hashtags with the word horror in it.
Yeah,
and that's kind of scary.
Yeah, and so much of what they do is based off computer algorithms and using bots to automate their filters and censorship. It's you've got things that get reported and deleted all the time because when the person reports it out of whatever reason, most of the time usually anger or disgust because the poster has somehow offended them in some way. What happens is it automatically notifies these bots, their algorithms, their computer programs go through, sift through it, and see if there's anything that really needs to be dealt with. And most of the time, it's not a person at the switch at all. It's a computer program that's just saying, okay, delete. And the problem is, once they realize that we get around the blockade on horror by, say, horror podcast, horror film, horror writer, they start adding the prefix horror in the tag. And it's, it could be a lot of worrying about nothing, but you gotta look at it from the perspective that whenever something happens, the first reaction of anyone now is to demand that something is taken away, something is censored, something is regulated, out of fear that not doing this will somehow cause a repeat. They did this last year. Tumblr actually just purged several people at the end of 2018, anything pertaining to adult content. That included horror, but their main focus was on sex workers because, their allegation is that by targeting this, they're somehow preventing human trafficking and cutting down on it, when in reality what they're doing is attacking an industry and a group of people that just happen to do something that is no longer as taboo as it was 50 years ago. So now you've got algorithms and companies that are targeting men and women that aren't necessarily doing sexual acts for money, but you've got people that are bloggers, you've got people that are sex coaches and therapists talking about topics and addressing issues that people have that before they might not have had any way to talk about and find out about. And the reason I bring that up is because we all know horror and porn have a long history together, going back to the 70s and the Grindhouse era, when, gore and what we would consider, B slasher movies and some of the really great stuff from the past, they were, you'd have Night of the Living Dead, or you'd have Deep Red playing in the same theater as Behind the Green Door or Deep Throat. And it was because these were all things that were viewed negatively in that time period that have since become more acceptable. And it's what we're looking at essentially is the same sort of censorship that's been imposed by these sites for sex workers and against women in general. And it's being focused now onto horror artists. And, the tragedy that happened in New Zealand seemed to coincide with this hashtag being embargoed by Instagram. Whether or not that's a coincidence or intentional, I don't know. And, unfortunately, I think the problem is it's easier to blame fantasy for the problems that are happening in our society than tackling the root issues at the cause of it.
I completely agree. And there is a difference between, the horror genre that we are talking about, that us horror fans are fans of and why and love. And I think what happened is the real life quote horror unquote kind of came into play, and I think that might have caused Instagram to be like, oh, we need to censor this one now because of the fact of it being related to the quote horror unquote of life, I think. And but unfortunately it hurts everybody that loved the horror genre anyway, because the hashtag horror was such a big popular hashtag that everybody used it, no matter what. Everybody used it because it was just so easy. And it's that 5-letter word that you just literally just, type you just use the number sign and then horror, and then that's it. You don't have to worry about a big ass one, or now maybe you have to do like, I don't know, like I started doing like hashtag horror genre. And then I thought like your thing about the hashtag horror is healthy. So then I started to use that when I could. And, it's just, if that tragedy that happened in New Zealand is somehow a coincidence to having this hashtag horror be centered, then oh man, I mean, maybe Instagram should really look at it more.
Well, yeah, and I mean, a big part of the problem is these companies, when MySpace, Facebook, Instagram, all of these social media sites started, nobody had the presence of mind to see that this was going to be something so powerful, something that completely shifted culture and society around the world the way that it has. And now that it has, people are wanting to regulate it like they do anything else about our society. And it gets into some really dark gray areas as far as free speech and individual liberties for people, you know, because you sit here and you don't want to see people selling human beings on social media, and you don't want to see people live broadcasting murders and violent crimes.
I
But
was just about to say that too about the whole live streaming now, where you know, where we see or hear somebody that goes on Facebook Live, and then next thing you know, they're shooting up somebody or whatever.
yeah,
And you know, I heard the last time there was like a really big one. I think that video live stream was going on for 15 minutes before Facebook shut it down, or
yeah,
before whatever happened.
yeah, it went on for 15 minutes, and truthfully, the video is still out there. The video will never disappear because that is the nature of the internet. That information hit the web, and it belongs to the universe now, and it's unfortunate. But you know, in response to this, I was reading an article today. I didn't get to read the whole article, but it was talking about how the Australians just passed a law in response to what happened in New Zealand, where they are putting down some really stringent guidelines against tech companies and social media companies to prevent a repeat of that. So anything that could potentially have any kind of violence in it is going to be prohibited now. And again, it's great in theory, but not in practice, because just like Instagram banning horror, that's great. I've never done a search for horror on Instagram and come across any real instances of violence or violent crime. But, you know, like I was just talking to you, you know, true crime, crime scene, violence, you can type in anything and get some really gruesome results. And you're typing them into tags that, you know, they're just not concerned about blocking. And so it really feels less like a coincidence, less like a problem with their algorithm, and more like a targeted attack against a community of artists and creators. But that's you know, the Hollywood influence as well. You know, Jordan Peele, when Us came out, literally got on Twitter and said Us is horror, because everybody in Hollywood, all the major entertainment outlets, you know, studios, they were all trying to sell it and call it a thriller, just like they did with Get Out, just like they did with Hereditary. And, you know, the problem isn't horror. The problem is the perception of horror. We've got a society that grew up hearing ghost stories. I mean, it's the oldest storytelling tradition there is. You know, as long as humans have had language and the ability to pass on stories to one another, we've told each other scary stories by the campfire. We've told kids stories about monsters hiding in the woods, and we didn't tell it to them to scare them. We told it to them because otherwise, if you tell a kid, hey, don't go off into the woods because there's a sinkhole in the lot next door that you could fall in and hurt yourself. There's a neighbor's dog is running loose. No, because kids are going to think, let's explore the sinkhole. Oh, well, the dog's running loose. Well, we'll catch him. But you tell a child that there is a monster that will literally drag it under the earth and eat it, and they're going to stay the hell out of the woods, with few exceptions, me being one of them, but I was just a pain in the ass as a kid. That's a completely different story. But we've told each other stories and fiction for so long, not because we're trying to dilute anything, but because when we take ourselves out of the element, when we take ourselves out of reality for just a moment, we get the opportunity to look at a situation as what it is rather than what we think it is while we're in it. It's like stepping outside of yourself for a moment to do an evaluation of everything about you. Like when you look in the mirror, you throw on some clothes and you're like, okay, this looks good. I'm ready to go. You still check in the mirror to make sure it looks good because you want to push yourself outside of what you can see from your position and see it from another angle to get verification, to see if you've got the whole picture. And that is essentially what horror does. It takes our fears about death and the unknown, and it forces us to step outside of our comfort zone, to step outside of what we accept and understand, and say, this is a way that I can view this and begin to cope with and understand it.
I like that. And it never gets easier too. And sometimes horror is that type of escape where we kind of forget about reality too, because we can indulge ourselves into the story and get lost and really forget the outside world. Because we're rooting for the characters in the film to survive, or maybe we're actually rooting for the villain or something. It's a part of the experience, the entertainment, and the what's going to happen next thing. I think that's why most films, like Wrong Turn, I hear Wrong Turn is going to be getting a reboot, but that had a total of 6 films. But that's one continuous story, just like Paranormal Activity. That is one continuous story with some side stories, I guess we could say. But
it's an overarching narrative that they've got going. It's like Child's Play, Child's Play has been a steady running franchise for 30 years, and it's about to take another step going that Ash versus Evil Dead route with a television series. At the same time, they're rebooting it and making a completely different story separate from the 30 years of history that it already has. And that leads off into a different conversation altogether, because it's one of those, do we need a remake of a franchise that's still actively running right now?
Right. Oh man, that reminds me of that reboot we're gonna be soon getting from the what was it, 2017, 2018 of the Train to Busan.
Train to Busan. Jesus. Yeah. There's a movie that just tap dances all over your emotions from the minute you start watching it. Like that movie, I was on, I got on to watch that movie when it hit when it hit Netflix, because I just wanted to see zombies on a train. And Asian horror, I love Asian horror because whether it's Korea, Japan, China, Vietnam, it doesn't matter. The Asian continent produces some of the most terrifying horror because they do not pull any punches when it comes to the sort of graphic, barbaric, terrifying things that we all dread. And they'll add humor, they'll add sex, they'll throw in anything they can to draw you in, and then bam, you got creepy kids sitting up in the ceiling, you got hair monsters growing out of the wall, or Train to Busan, you've just literally got these running zombies. Have you ever seen an ant colony, one of the I think they call it a super organism, when they all just brick together and start moving like a ball or some other shape? And yeah, and that's what the zombies reminded me of in Train to Busan. But at the same time, hearing that we're getting a Western remake of it, really drops my heart into my stomach, because it's like Let the Right One In. Let the Right One In is a brilliant, beautiful vampire story that was unlike anything I've ever seen. Let Me In is it's like a watered down English language distillation because somebody didn't want to read subtitles.
Oh, and on top of that, they had to switch the gender of the child around for the vampire.
Yeah.
And which, in my opinion, to that film, I thought the little girl actually worked beautifully because, you know, you get the struggling father with his daughter per se, but then the way I look at it with what was it? Was it another struggling father with the son, or was it actually a mother at the time?
Yeah, in the original one, it was a mother and her son, and then the little girl vampire that he befriended.
Right.
And, you know, it's a beautiful movie, and I don't think we ever really truly need a remake, especially not within the same decade of a movie. You know, I don't think we need Train to Busan in 2016, 2017, and then Train to Busan in 2019? Is it coming out later this year?
This year or next?
Yeah, like we don't need. I mean, it's like getting the Great Value equivalent of some Lucky Charms. You know, I'll eat those marshmallow mateys, but they don't taste quite the same in milk.
That's true.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with horror. Like I love it, you know, and I'll end up watching the English language version and giving it a shot, because I try very much, even if I don't think it's going to work, to open up and accept the new experience, accept something different, you know. And I was pleasantly surprised sometimes. You know, I've been a diehard Ghostbusters fan since I was like 3 years old, and I had serious doubts when they did the all-female cast for the 2016 remake. Going into it, I wasn't entirely convinced it was going to be as good as the original. I'm one of the few people that really enjoyed it, I think. And, I actually have more hesitation and concern over this sequel they're doing to the original that's supposed to come out next year. And, because it's like, why do we need it? Is it necessary? I think some stories are just timeless enough that they don't have to be remade in a lifetime. You know, there's never been a good remake of It's a Wonderful Life, which is itself kind of an underrated horror classic when you look at some of the elements of it. You know, it's very mainstream until you get to the part where he decides to try and jump off a bridge and magical beings intercept him and take him into an alternate reality where he never existed.
Right.
But
which speaking of which, so I think we touched on it a little bit, but I don't think we really went into it. But we were talking about how the hashtag horror, how now with it being censored, it's going to hurt the small people, and like us, Dan, and Tessa. Now how does it affect like films though? So how is censoring a hashtag horror gonna affect like film, music maybe for like horror films or whatever? Like how is it really gonna start affecting people, I guess?
Well, and the biggest way it's going to begin affecting them is when you type in horror, it's going to throw that roadblock at you. So, you're going to have to, as creators first, we're going to have to be more creative in how we tag things in order to appear. Like, as far as most of the stuff I do, I always try and include, if I'm writing a review on a movie, on an independent horror film, I always try and add the hashtag indie film, independent film, indie horror or indie whatever to, get it into that independent channel in the hashtags.
That's
but,
true.
It going back to what we were saying earlier, if I'm just, looking for something horror related, if I want a horror movie, if I'm just going out there and hit horror, then I get that. And a lot of us, a lot of people in general, when they type in a hashtag and what they get next is an unexpected box warning them about what they've typed in, a lot of people are just going to close it out and back away because they're going to feel like they've done something wrong, and it's going to push them away from searching for it. And that's going to be the big way, because a lot of folks now, they want to give you a snippet. They want to give you a little taste of what they're working on. I've seen a lot of filmmakers, they'll give you production stills. They'll give you behind the scenes looks. They'll give you some short clips and trailers for their film right there on their Instagram page. And it works. I got involved and became friends with folks behind Alfred J. Hemlock. I don't know if y'all have seen that or not. It's a fantastic
Short.
horror short.
Yeah.
I think it's free now to watch on YouTube. But I was just bored one night, typed in horror, started scrolling through recent stuff, came across a picture of them putting the makeup on their lead actor, and it enticed me. So I went there, I started looking through their page, looking through the production stills, because they were in post-production at this point. And I sent a private message and said, hey, I'm a writer for 52 Weeks of Horror. I would love to talk to you guys about this movie and about maybe doing an interview and writing some articles. They sent me a screener, started talking a lot with them, did an interview. They eventually told me about Alfred J. Hemlock going to Peachtree City for the first Women in Horror Film Festival. And it was because of them telling me about it that I found out about it. And it's a lot of that circuitousness that, A leads to B leads to C that happens, that helps people in the community get to know each other. I'm sitting, and it all started from just looking up a hashtag one night when I was just laying in bed kind of bored. And when you start taking away that ability, you start taking away the ability of people within the community to just kind of have these sort of happenstance, meetings and connections. And you're cutting back on the ability of people to meet one another and to open up to what art they're creating. It's going to hurt them when it comes to promoting these films, because unless you're paying for the advertising, you're going to get buried in the recent posts.
Correct. And I will have to agree with the whole, horror, the hashtag horror is like one great way to find films or anything that you may not have heard about, like, ever. And just like with that one, that is an amazing short. I enjoyed that short, by the way. I just got to put it out there. And I believe it is on YouTube right now. And, like, if it wasn't for the hashtag horror, I don't think we would ever find these cool indie shorts anyway to, as like you did, to talk with one another, because, it's eliminating the aspect of finding new things. And unless it's just gonna rehash the same bullshit we've already seen, maybe within the first 50 articles or 50 the 50 results, I mean,
Yeah.
then we should start seeing that there is a problem, and it is going by what is the top post, as you were mentioning earlier. Now,
Yeah.
Now, Dan, you were mentioning too, like you use the certain, you're using specific hashtags depending on what you're talking about. Now, what do you think the horror community can really do to help fix or help be like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
Oh, yeah.
what can we do to make this thing not hit us in the face too hard?
Really the biggest way to get their attention is to hit them in the wallet. If but it kind of goes back to what would be great is to see the entire horror community just completely up and abandon Instagram for a 24-hour period, just go completely dark and let them deal with that loss of revenue from people not clicking on their ads, from not going and supporting their purchased content. And but that reminds me of the email chain letters when I was in high school. This Tuesday is going to be National Don't Fill Up Your Car Day. Make the oil companies choke on their own reserves and whatnot. And it's
like $23.5 million or whatever, like within a day. Yeah.
Yeah, and it never works because
No.
At the end of the day, people are only going to do so much, and very few are going to actually step outside of their comfort zone to do it. So what we've got to do is, start contacting Instagram, start reporting through their automated systems saying, hey, I have a problem, and that problem is you're blocking my searches for horror content. That starts generating the numbers and starts showing that there is a community here that cares. Second thing, and possibly the more important thing that we can do, is we've really got to get some of the big players in the horror community involved in this. I have yet to see anybody, from Fangoria, Rue Morgue, from any of the major horror journalism outlets, any of the major horror studios start talking about the fact that horror is being censored like this on Instagram. And I haven't checked because I honestly could give two shits about Facebook most days, but I've heard the same things happening on Facebook as well. And of course, like we were talking earlier, they purged all sorts of what they considered adult content from Tumblr at the end of last year. So, that included a lot of folks that were horror artists on top of the sex workers and body positivity people that they were mainly targeting with that. So, right now, the biggest things we can do as a community are really urge the big name creators and studios, the larger websites, and basically influencers within the horror genre and horror community, really push them to get involved and start making some noise, because honestly, Instagram doesn't give a shit about me. They don't give a shit about you guys. They're, we're small ducks. If we're causing enough of a problem for them, they'll up and shut down our accounts. Ooh, But you start seeing people like Fangoria, which, Fangoria in no small part is still alive and going today because of the horror fans and the horror community on social media keeping it alive when they went through all of their turmoil and turnaround and restructuring.
Oh yeah, it was a high demand for Fangoria to come back.
Yeah.
People wanted it.
Yeah. I mean, I used to love going into the bookstore, they'd put the horror magazines right there on the shelf below the porno magazines because, they didn't want anybody coming over there and actually looking at that stuff. You know, they were just carrying it because, you know, it sells, but it's that dirty little secret that, you know, you don't want to take out in public. And, you know, the horror fans and the horror community, they helped keep Fangoria on life support and keep it alive in the popular eye long enough for it to make a comeback. And really, there's a lot of horror celebrities out there that could truly say the same thing. You know, there's a lot of, I think Ash versus Evil Dead is probably the best example. You know, Bruce Campbell is a successful actor. He is one of those faces and personalities that you always remember. But the VHS movement is what brought Evil Dead back to life and introduced it to a new generation. And hitting the digital era, that truly is what springboarded Ash versus Evil Dead into existence. You know, and it's that kind of, you know, it's that sort of social media activism, though, where we really start making noise, and eventually somebody that has the ability to do something does it because they hear and they say, you know what, I agree with you, it'd be cool. So honestly, at this point, make noise, make it loud, and make sure they hear you, because that's the only way we're going to get it to change and get it back to normal. You know, I had somebody suggest to me on Twitter today that, you know, maybe some sort of content warning. Again, I'm not a fan of censorship at all, but I would rather see a search for horror include a content warning before giving me access to what I'm looking for than this nonsense of giving me access to what they tell me I can have and then not having access at all to anything else.
That is true. And to touch on what you were saying about Facebook, I can confirm that today I noticed it, that when I posted a post up on Facebook, well, from Instagram to Facebook, that thing, you know how with Facebook, if you remember anyway, Dan, but for all those two that are listening, you know, usually when you are on Facebook and you're looking at a website that uses a hashtag, most of the time the hashtag will be like a bold looking link.
Mm-hmm.
This time the hashtag horror is just regular text. It is not a link itself. It's just broken. Like, it's not working at all.
And I think I saw Stacy Cox from DecayMag. She posted something like that earlier tonight too, before I got on here.
Yep. Yeah, she did, because what happened was I went into our group and I mentioned that I think it's happening on Facebook with a hashtag horror, and it's not just Instagram. Because what I even did too was I opened up Facebook, and I'm doing it right now. So I'm trying to think of an example here. So you mentioned a good one earlier, crime scene, I think it was.
Yeah.
So let's see what comes up if I do crime scene for hashtag on Facebook. Oh, look, it's not bad. I mean, there's some links, there's some whatever, but I mean, does it really work as a post yet? I'm not 100% sure, because I'm not really posting anything, but let me try it real quick. So right now, I'm actually typing in crime scene, hashtag crime scene. I am going to publish it right on my wall right now. Oh, look, crime scene actually works, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
And,
oh, yeah.
And what's the other one that you were saying? What was the other one real quick? It was a really good one.
True crime. And I had violence earlier that I did.
Oh, look. Yep. There's true crime right there. Yep. And then violence, you said? Well, check out violence real quick on Facebook. Let's see here. Violence. I'm just curious to see this. Yep, there it is. Look at that. Ain't that scary? Now, with horror, what do we get? Jack shit.
Yep.
You just get a normal text. Just a normal text, almost like it doesn't even exist. So, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah. Well, and it's just more of the same crap that as a genre community, as a group of artists that we've got to continue to deal with. It's that fight for legitimacy.
It's that fight for what? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I've got a phone trying to dance its way off my desk at the moment. It's we're fighting for legitimacy. You know, a lot of other art forms, they're more accepted in the mainstream, and even though we've got some great mainstream horror out there right now, you know, The Walking Dead has created kind of a renaissance for the zombie subgenre. You know, to the point where it's honestly getting a little tiresome. But you know, we've proven as a genre, we've proven, you know, Robert Kirkman, Frank Darabont, Jordan Peele. Like I'm excited. I'm not normally excited about remakes and reboots, especially of ones that have been done to death. But I am excited as hell to get a chance to sit down and start watching The Twilight Zone. Because I feel like if anybody is going to do Rod Serling's classic justice, it's going to be Jordan Peele. And I've heard nothing but good things, and I want to see it for myself. But, you know, as a community of artists, we've proven time and again that when you make an R-rated horror, when you create something for mature audiences that's going to scare the hell out of them, it's going to draw in a crowd. You're going to make money off of this. You're not going to lose out in production cost. You're not going to lose out in advertising costs. Hell, advertising comes almost free when you think of the number of horror websites, podcasters, bloggers, writers, fans that are out there constantly sharing this information. I mean, you almost don't have to put any kind of advertising budget together for mainstream horror because it's going to do its own job. You know, people are getting excited about the Sosa Sisters Rabid remake. Again, not a fan of remakes. Cannot wait to see this. Because again, if somebody can pull off, you know, doing a remake of this film, it's going to be them. And the problem is, well, one of the problems is I've just gone off on a complete tear and forgot what I was about to say. But you know, I think the problem is we're fighting for legitimacy because we've got proof in the last 2 years alone that horror is wanted, that the mainstream audiences are there the same way they're there for superhero movies, like everything that Disney and Marvel throw out. You know, that same audience exists. That money that these studios and executives want is going to come flowing in so fast they can't count it. But they want to continue to insist that it's thriller, that it's action adventure, that it is anything other than horror. And that just perpetuates what, you know, it's... Let me rephrase this because I'm stepping all over my tongue here. They're continuing to perpetuate the myth that horror cannot be a legitimately viewed genre, that horror fans are not legitimate in any way. And, you know, it's just undercutting everything that we as a community work towards.
That's it. It's just getting way out of hand, I just think. And if we gotta do more work than what we should be, or that we haven't done. If we have to do more work than what we haven't done in the past because of this thing, then I think we need to refocus and speak out against this, because otherwise it's just going to get worse and worse, and then what's left?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's one of those. We're a community of people, a community of artists, and I keep saying that because that's what this is. Horror is an art form. The ability to tell a real, relatable story about things that otherwise would just be too terrifying to rationally process. You've taken it to a place where you can do so much with the genre and with the art that we're out there creating. And it's this insistence from companies and groups and studios that, it's not a legitimate art form, that they are not legitimate artists, and that the fans just don't really know what they want. And if they do, then they're really not the sort of people that we should want to be around. And that's really what this entire thing with Instagram boils down to, is with their wording and with their handling of it. They are saying that as a community, we are not wanted. And, it's clearly not the case when you look at the box office and when you look at ratings and, all of the horror related material that's coming into the mainstream more and more every year. And it's baffling, and really it's going to be hard for fans, and especially for independents, because a lot of folks, they get into this and they want to be artists. They just want to create, and that's fantastic. But if all you want to do is create, the number of people that are going to see your work is going to be very small. You're going to have a very limited audience. And, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to open it to a wider audience, you have to take risks, you have to take chances, and you have to share it. And for a lot of us, this is a passion. I listen regularly to Adam Green and Joe Lynch when they do the movie Crypt. And they're all the time talking about the passion, talking about the hard hours, the hard work, the sacrifice that comes from devoting yourself to it. And if you're in it just to make money, then you're there strictly for the marketing aspect. You're not a creator, you're an ad person. And you've got to balance creativity with self-promotion in order to make it, and you have to be relentless to do it. And that's where this is going to hurt the most, because it's going to weed out a lot of people that don't have the support network in place, that don't have the backing from people to keep pursuing this.
For the voice.
The
voice. And then when they don't speak out about whatever they're trying to promote whatever they're creating, I should say, because, it can be literally anything. Yeah. And if you don't promote the shit out of it, then, like you said, less people are going to see it. But if you speak out about it, then it grows. Mm-hmm. But if you are only there for the money, then I almost want to say you're doing it for the wrong reason. But, everybody's views are different. I understand that. But then if you're really looking at the fucking money, I think what happens is you're really forgetting about the idea of creating something good and not rushed.
Yeah.
And making it fall flat and become garbage.
Yeah. Like I spent almost 13 years working in emergency services, working in a 911 center. And I finally last June said, you know what, fuck it, I'm tired of this. And I quit my job, and I've devoted the last year almost to trying to make a living out of what I love. And what I've learned is, one, it's fucking hard. Like, it is quite possibly one of the hardest things I've ever done. But I've started scaling back the amount of things I do and the amount of, places I do it for, because I'm learning that the main thing I want to do is write. And the main thing that you have to do if you're trying to make a living at it is promote. And you got to have something worth promoting. So you've got to find a balance in all of this between, being willing to go out there and sell with all your heart, and being willing to say, I love this and I'm just going to do it because I want to do it. And, if you can find that balance and be happy in doing it, then that's the dream. But if you can just get out there and create and share and enjoy it, then that's just as good. And by blocking the horror hashtag, it's going to prevent a lot of artists out there, a lot of talented creators, from doing that, because it's going to tell them that they cannot share their art and they cannot share their passion unless they can pony up the money to pay for the privilege of working hard to do it. And
which brings up an interesting question. Sorry to cut you off, Dan, but before I forget, now I'm surprised you haven't mentioned it yet, or if somebody hasn't really said anything. But I'm almost thinking, when it comes down to the horror community, you know how usually when something bad in the world is going on, right? Mm-hmm. What's the first thing that comes to what usually happens when the storm of social media comes up to play? It's a petition.
Mm-hmm.
Does that actually work?
It won't, because they've tried it. And going back to the whole, Instagram with its censorship of women and female nudity. There was a movement that still goes on. It's a hashtag Free the Nipple, and I can remember seeing a couple of petitions over the years to try and get Instagram to loosen the reins, so they're not, sitting there and blocking these artists, because like we were talking about earlier, there's a lot of photographers out there that do artistic photos of people.
Oh yeah, they do gorgeous work.
Yeah, and just like with horror, Instagram has this weird policy: if it's a painting or drawing of a woman, she can be completely nude, but if it's a photograph, it has to be censored. Horrify Me is a company in the UK that specializes in doing horror photography, and they've got some just incredible fucking stuff that they do, and they've got a lot of new. There's this great female pinhead that has gone around for a couple of years now, and it's very sexy, it's very intriguing, and this is some of their earlier work that they did, and it's one of those things. They're completely off of Instagram now, and usually it's a teetering back and forth with Facebook, because they have to fight so much with the censors. Then on top of that, they're British, or well, let me rephrase that. They're in England. I don't know if they identify as British or what, and I'm not going to get into all of that because I know I will piss somebody off somehow by misspeaking.
Oh, we're always good at that.
Oh yeah, but England has just got the weirdest, just some of the weirdest and most bizarre censorship in the world, in the free world, I should say. And they censor the hell out of horror. I mean, there are still horror movies from the 70s and 80s that are literally banned in the United Kingdom. that you cannot see at all. And, it's bizarre. And, as a community, you want to petition, you want to rally, but the only thing that's really going to change Instagram's mind is money. And it's going to have to be either the adding of cash to their coffers in order to open up the hashtag again, or the threat of losing some substantial cash before they do it.
Or we just need to have big names step up and start speaking out against Instagram too.
Well, and that's exactly why we need that, because when you get them to start stepping up and saying, hey, this is not cool, this is not something that we are okay with, and you need to fix this, when there's the potential that these people are going to leave the platform and take their followers with them, then they start to prick up their ears and start to notice what's going on. And that's one of those things where we need it to happen. We need it to happen soon, because it feels to me like the very gradual, nothing major ever happens all at once. It is a very gradual step process. It builds, and this is just a continuing growth of censorship against this particular art form. So,
right,
what happens next? Do we see them go after other genres? Do we see them go after specific artists or specific types of art within these genres? Will it suddenly be, well, horror film is okay, but not photography. We're going to let horror music, but not podcasting. We'll let certain writers have access to the platform, but others, their work's just not right for what we want, so we're not going to allow them to use it for that. And, again, it's just these entities have created something that has become integral to the community, and now it's becoming a problem because they're trying to retool how it's done, and they're trying to take that control away from the creators. And it's just, censorship just sucks all the way around. And if you cannot self-censor, if you cannot say, I don't want to see this, I don't want to experience this, and I'm not going to, then you need to get the hell off the internet. You need to get the hell out of the world. Really. I mean, go live in the woods, go live in a commune, go live somewhere where you don't have to risk having your sensibilities threatened by what is being said, done, and created. And
right.
It's getting to the point where social media is becoming the new tool of a nanny state, where anybody who complains enough or anybody who feels threatened by the art that they see is able to shut it down. And just saying that reminds me of, I follow some cosplayers, and like the cosplay and fandom convention circuit, that is a total shit show, because for people that grew up as nerds, geeks, ostracized, bullied, ridiculed for the things that we found joy in, we have become communities of just such petty, hateful assholes. I'll see cosplayers that are literally building, like learning and sharing their process, that are building some really cool rigs, and then you've always got this one dick that'll get on there and with just the intention of publicly humiliating this person for exploring their hobby, for exploring their interest or their passion or their art, and it will start a chain reaction that becomes an argument that eventually leads to the whole post getting deleted, because either the person who posted the picture is tired of seeing this bullshit in their feed all the time, or one of the algorithms caught something, that was amiss, or somebody reported the post itself in order to win an argument, and there it is, it's gone. And it's the same problem in every branch of fandom, in every branch of art. And it's getting out of hand now because of the same tools that allow independent art to flourish and proliferate. It's also allowing these trolls to get this
win.
It's giving them this unjustified sense of power and control. And it's really got to be like the whole issue needs to be a very large and very heated conversation about self-change and allowing some openness of our own minds and our own abilities. Like tonight, a friend of mine posted this thing about a paranormal group that was going to do a special investigation and live stream it from the Bell Witch house out in Adams, Tennessee. And I've been to the I've been to the Bell Witch cave a few times, and I've seen the Bell house, and I'm familiar with it. And my initial thought with the way this article read, and with the way the description was made by these people, and the pictures that were used, my initial thought was, okay, I'm throwing the bullshit flag, because there's a reason this is not going to happen, and a reason why it's not legitimate. And then after that, I'm like, you know what? Maybe these people are actually spending the time to research it, to study it, to actually do some legitimate investigation and share something new and entertaining as well as informative. So maybe shut the hell up for a minute and watch and let them do it and see what happens. And, the problem is the internet and social media has awakened that inner troll in everybody, because we all have moments where we look at this and something vitriolic and poisonous comes out of our mouth or goes across our keyboard at some point, and then we're like, fuck. Well, that just completely ruins the point I was trying to make, because now I'm the asshole. I'm the troll. And there is no forgiveness anymore either. So once it's out there, once you've done it, it's a hard road to hoe to get back to good. And
well, yeah, because it's screenshotted and now it's plastered everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And to go back, and sorry, before I lose my train of thought here, but you made a really interesting point that I wanted to touch on real quick. When you were talking about hobbies, that's exactly what's going to happen, or is, if not already happening, is those new people that want to start that new hobby because they have something fresh, they have something new, they want to try something different to try to bring us that new information or whatever. Now, when it comes to them trying to make it and they're getting centered, now what? Nobody is going to pay attention to them because they just started. They're not going to get their name out there, and they're going to probably get trolled on because of the fact that maybe somebody might catch something and be like, well, didn't this person do this? And we've already seen it before. But in reality, we may not have, because people are already running their fucking mouth like they always do, because they think they're better than everybody. They're that best critic, and they're not giving anybody a chance to really show us or them what they can really do.
Yeah. And, you've got a lot of people, and there are so many young kids on here too. And I say that like I'm a fucking old man now, but like there are kids that are my son's age that are getting on here, and they are creating just some mind-blowing practical effects and films and stories and just some incredible art. And you're already talking about
like that 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is phenomenal.
Mhm.
Oh my god, I forget her name right now, but yeah, she's 9 years old and she can make the most. She's almost making like Hollywood stuff. Like it's
Oh,
ridiculous.
yeah. Yeah. And, you've already got these kids that are dealing with life in the 21st century, life totally entrenched in the social media age. And then they're going up not only against all the self doubt and creative concern, the peer pressure, and the nervousness that just comes from that age and that creative mindset. But now they're going up against the whole fucking troll nation and competing with platforms that are specifically beginning to target artists and art forms as just villains, vilifying what we do. And I don't know how we can expect to see any continued progress, any continued motion forward in the art form until we find ways to deal with that. Because it's that 1-2 punch. It's not like you're either going to have to deal with the trolls or you're going to have to deal with the censors. Now you got to deal with both, on top of all that crippling self-doubt that so many creative people have, and that worry. It's mind-boggling to think that anybody under the age of 30 is still trying to do anything new and inventive and creative when you've literally got generations ahead of you talking about what a piece of shit your generation is. You've got the online community constantly looking for ways to pick apart everything you do. And now you've got the platforms themselves where you share this work coming down on you and saying that there is something mentally defective about you because you're doing this.
That's because the internet has become the new bully. It's no longer outside in the school. It's now the internet.
Oh yeah, it is. It has literally awakened the inner bully in so many people. There are so many people. I refuse to name them because some are friends and family. But I will see posts on social media. It's one reason I said to hell with Facebook for the most part. I try not to do anything now, but share baby pictures with family and friends, and then of course update the sites, the social media that I write for. So unless I'm sharing baby pictures or sharing new articles, I try and stay the hell away from it because it's just so toxic. And I see things from people, and I'm like, wow, you're actually kind of a shitty human being, and I hate that I know you.
Yeah, you're kind of a shitbag.
Yeah, and well, I guess I'll see you on Thanksgiving too.
Oh boy.
And it's those things that you want to, and part of you wants to fight against it. You want to get into those heated internet debates, but nobody wins in a fight on the internet. I don't think anybody has really come to that conclusion yet. You don't win in a fight on the internet.
No, you want to know what it comes down to on the internet? It's who blocks who first.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Who can report who the fastest? Who can create the most bullshit thing to start trouble with? And it's all an extension of that. It's, there's so much wrong with our society, and we want to fix it all, and we want to fix it all at the same time. We want to fix it all right now. And the problem is, it didn't get fucked up overnight, and we're not going to unfuck it in the course of a weekend or, via posts on Facebook. We're going to have to actually put in the work and the time and the effort and accept the fact that there is a good possibility that it's going to take more than our generation to actually fix the problems. But as far as the hashtag horror thing, we got to be loud, we got to be persistent, and we got to stay on it. because that's the only way we're going to eventually get people to recognize and accept our art form, our community for what it is.
That's right. And on that note, Dan, thank you so much for speaking your mind, talking with us about this issue. Because I mean, I know a little bit, but I know you know it more because I always see you post about it. And one of the new things that I've seen, which by the way, was it you or who was it that decided to create that new one, the hashtag horror is healthy?
So that actually came up on the 52 Weeks of Horror. We do Jeff and Haley do a Twitch live podcast every Wednesday, I think it is. And one of our viewers on that, Tom, he, as we were all talking about it, I was in the comments talking with the audience. Jeff and Haley were talking to him on the stream, and Tom threw this out there, hashtag horror is healthy. And we're like, hell yeah, this is perfect. This is great. We're going to use the hell out of this because we're going to tell people it's healthy. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to like these scary things and to use them. It's okay to
create. It's okay to watch. It's okay to read. Like anything horror is okay. We're not some demented fuckwad that needs help.
You're not a demented criminal. You're not out there looking this up because you want to hurt yourself or hurt somebody else. You're literally somebody who has taken the oldest, strongest emotion in human history and has embraced it as a way to grow, learn, and evolve. And that is the essence of it right there. Horror, we never conquer anything. We've never done anything great in history as a species that didn't come from being scared, from being uncertain, and saying, fuck it, I want to go and see what's out there. When they sailed off to find North America, when we were exploring the world, nobody knew what they were going to find. It's terrifying. But they did it anyway because nothing easy is worthwhile and nothing worthwhile is ever easy. The space program, you're literally strapping yourself to a V2 rocket in the beginning and launching yourself into the atmosphere, having no clue whether or not you're actually going to successfully come down. Now, we've got a space station. So many of our greatest advancements in medicine, science, technology have come out of the space program and things that were learned through the space program. It's that thing. We look at something and we say, that scares the hell out of me. And we either step away from it and never go back. But eventually somebody comes up and says, that scares the hell out of me. I want to know why. And they go towards it. And that's why horror is important, because it is a safe way to begin that exploration, because suddenly you've looked outside of yourself at the issue, and now you're propelling yourself towards it with the goal of changing the world because of it.
Correct. And like I said, Dan, I mean, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, this is a really tough subject, I think, and it can't just be done with just, you and I and Tessa. I know Tessa's been quiet, but I mean, I just really don't think she knows how to really take this, really, because...
No, I'm speechless, really.
Yeah, and
that's the problem. That's the community in general. We don't know, because we're so used to being, and I say this as a ginger myself, we're so used to being the redheaded stepchild in the art world, in the entertainment world, that we don't know, are we just being overly sensitive, or is this a real issue we need to handle? And I'm here to tell you, it's a real issue we need to handle. and we need to handle it now, because if we don't, it's going to get worse, and it's going to get too big for us to handle.
And then we're going to be nobodies. Like, what are we? Nobodies.
Yeah. It will all go back to the way it was before the internet. And people think it's hard to get ahead now. They really need to look back on the entertainment scene, pre-internet, pre-YouTube, pre-social media.
How everything got around before the internet. Yeah. Exactly.
Hell,
exactly.
Pre-VHS. They need to go back pre-VHS and, learn how to make, produce, and market a horror movie on, Super 8. Because you haven't lived until you've really had to understand fighting for your art. Like even I try very hard at what I do, but even I have had it so easy compared to some of these great filmmakers and writers and artists within the genre because of social media and the internet. We all as a community need to step back and appreciate the art for what it is and rally together to make sure that it stays available to anybody that wants it.
Right. And once again, on that note, really in conclusion of this hashtag horror thing is people need to speak up. Do not be quiet. You need to speak up, because if you do not speak up, we're going to become buried and nobody's going to hear our voices, because we're already been so buried that it's going to be hard for people to take that shovel to dig the garbage from above us. And if you do speak out, you need to, because once you speak out, it can create a chain reaction where everybody speaks out. And once that happens, that is when people will take notice, and hopefully Instagram, because, it's not always bad to have an angry mob with torches and everything else. But if you just have that one Barbie doll in your hand because you're not talking loud, then I guess we can just tear the doll apart and set it on fire, because that's what we would have come down to.
Yeah. Do it now. Do it loud, because honestly, I don't think we'll get Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr. They're all the same company. I don't think we're going to get Instagram to change, but I think we can hopefully prevent other outlets from following suit. I think that needs to be the goal right now, is cut it off like the cancer it is. Stop it before it can grow. So thanks, guys, for having me on, and congratulations on 100 episodes.
Well, thank you very much, Dan. It was definitely a pleasure, and I definitely liked your insights on it, even though I know you were talking most of the time, but I was just listening because, this is a really crazy thing, and I don't want to keep going back into it, but it is. It really is crazy. And the only way we're going to win this battle is by people like you listening, and maybe your mom that's listening behind you. Everybody that is listening needs to speak out, because without it, we will be the small guys, and without the big names behind our backs like Fangoria, Bloody Disgusting, Dread Centro, whoever, even famous known big names like Bruce Campbell, or maybe, I don't know. I mean, I could go on really, but the idea is we need the big voices, because without them, we are nothing, like we have discussed. And I don't want to keep spreading the butter all over the bread, but we need to just stop and realize that it's time to speak out.
Yeah. It's not the fight we started. It's not the fight we want, but it's the one we need to finish.
That's right. And on that note, everybody, thank you. And this was Dan Lee from Danno of the Dead and 52 Weeks of Horror. I was just Podolsky, of course, with my lovely fiance,
Tessa Baker.
And as always, well, in this case, everybody, not only do we want to stay scary, but you need to remember that what, Dan?
horror is healthy.
Thank you, Dan, so much for your input and to chat with us. I mean, it was useful and it was very helpful as well to help us even learn. But to take it even further, we got on board with us Jeffery and Haley to put in their thoughts about the ongoing Instagram censoring #horror. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to Everything Horror, and thank you, Everything Horror, for inviting us over. I'm Jeffrey Potts. I'm with 52 Weeks of Horror, and with me is Haley, my co-host, my partner, my everything, my creation.
Also with 52 Weeks of Horror, I am.
Also with 52 Weeks of Horror. How you doing, Haley?
I'm doing great, Jeffrey. How are you doing?
I'm good, but we really need to address a problem, and that is #horror on Instagram. I know it may seem silly, it may seem a little trite, but here's the thing. I don't like people telling me what I can and cannot look at when it comes to my horror content. And Haley,
hey,
our social media expert, manager, everything, who is amazing, she actually brought this to my attention first. So what happened?
So I was searching up horror to find new horror content to, maybe reach out to someone and say, hey, can we interview you or something?
Yeah, we like what you're doing.
Yeah, that's what we do. And so I did that, and this was after the new update, and greeted with a message that says, posts with words or tags you're searching for often encourage behavior that can cause harm and even lead to death. If you're going through something difficult, we'd like to help. And then you can click get support or see posts anyway. Well, I'm like, I'm not going to hurt anyone or myself. I thought, this is a great art form. Why would I do that?
Right.
And so I went ahead and clicked see posts anyway. Guess what? There's nothing there. Under recents.
Oh, the recents,
the
right.
Recents tab, there's nothing there. There's something under the popular one, which is if you get like thousands of hits a day, which we're not that.
Yeah, man, it's hard. It's hard to get thousands hits a day, especially when you're doing horror type stuff. I mean, let's just be honest here. I mean, I love horror. I think everyone who's listening to this podcast, everyone who is listening to Everything Horror, or even comes over to 52weeksofhorror.com, I think you can safely say we love the horror genre. We love everything about horror.
Right.
But here we are now, unless you're making like thousands of hits and different influencers a day, your stuff, anything that you do, either whether it be art, just writing, something that you experienced as kind of being scary, that is all now just drowned out. Which
we had experienced on YouTube starting out because of the new algorithms and adpocalypse and all of that. So it wasn't as shocking, but YouTube didn't remove every horror channel off of there, which on Instagram everything's still there that's horror, but you can't see it. You can't see it.
You're not gonna find it under the hashtag horror. You're gonna find it under the hashtag of pretty much anything else you put it under. So, like if you're doing sleepaway camp type stuff, if you're a big fan of Felissa Rose in that movie, then if you're doing like the final shot, that kind. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who may not have seen it, but you're doing that final shot, or you're doing something from Friday the 13th, or Nightmare on Elm Street, or going even new to Us, the new Jordan Peele film, or even going classic to Dracula. You hashtag horror, somehow Instagram believes that you have a problem. However, the big issue is not that we don't want people to get help for it. Mental health issues.
That's definitely something Instagram needs to address. They've been needing to address it for a long time.
Absolutely, and I want to make this point very, very clear. We are in favor of people getting the help that they need. That said, horror is not your problem. Things like death, things like gore, things like hashtag I want to kill myself. Do not.
We don't suggest anyone go and search for these terms either.
Yeah,
it's definitely something we don't want to do. We've been very careful with pointing out the ones that are there, but when one is as blunt as I want to kill myself and nothing pops up, there's something wrong there.
Yes.
They'd rather block out an art genre, and horror fan is still there. Anything like horror art, horror, all that, that's great, but straight horror, which is
it's a very broad
genre. is not there.
Yeah, and that's a problem because that's affecting people, not just fans of horror, but artists, people who want to sell products that are horror based, people that want to reach out and get in touch with a community that is very open, I would say. I don't know about anyone else, but I would say ever since entering into the horror community, which again, I was nervous back in the day. I was scared. I was like, ooh, do I go to my first Monsterpalooza? What's this going to be like? Are people going to see through me that I haven't seen every horror film out there? No, that's not what happened. They were very open. They basically, literally embraced.
The horror community is amazing. We wouldn't have half of the things we have without the community. We wouldn't have Dan if it wasn't for half of the community.
Right. And the ironic thing, even though this hashtag business is just ridiculous, we've actually met a lot more horror people through this terrible mistake that Instagram has made. So we want to share the hashtag horror is healthy because that's what it is.
Yeah, and hashtag, it was so funny because this made me so mad. I was like, Jeff, we have to make a post on this. We have to discuss this. So we did our podcast. One of our followers, Tom, said hashtag horror is healthy after everything. We're like, right. Oh, that's genius. And so after that, I said, Jeff, we need to make an Instagram post. We need to do something.
Right.
So he made the hashtag horror is healthy photo. Mm-hmm. I posted online, gave out my little spiel of how we felt about it. And before we knew it, everyone is sharing.
Yeah, and I think what I want to do is make it available for everyone to post on their stuff. Feel free to share. Feel free to take it, use it. By all means, this is not something I'm trying to copyright in any sort of way. I want people to get the word out that horror is healthy. That people go through life and they have benefited from horror. Because we don't hear about it, because you don't hear about the good it does, that the genre does. We only hear about, there's slashers, there's murderers, there's killings, there's monsters. These are things that people should be scared of, should be afraid of. We're here to tell you that's not the case. That's not true. There are things up there on Instagram that are not being flagged.
Things like, shoot me, I want to kill myself, strangle. I don't want to listen to it.
Yeah, no.
There's some horrible pictures with that.
Yeah, there's gun violence.
Gun violence is one. You know how many photos? I've seen enough that I don't need to see.
Yeah, no, it's bad, and to just simply pull out horror as your scapegoat, as something that you can pick on, is quite honestly not very original, because people have been trying to do that for years, and we just keep coming back. Yep. We just keep coming back like we rise from the grave. We're like zombies.
No, we're not. No, we're not. Don't say that.
But we're also here to support.
We are. There's artists that we support. There are just the horror fans, people who love this genre, people who love Halloween, people who love, painting, photography.
Yeah. There's people express themselves through art. And that art can reflect things that they love, which can be horror. So don't think that horror is something that should be maligned. Don't think that horror is something that people should be protected from. They should be exposed to. Because maybe not everyone can handle every single type of horror film. You need to know your limits, for sure. But censoring an entire genre is not the way to do it.
Everyone who is sharing hashtag horror is healthy, don't just share it. Also, tag Instagram in it. Report that there's a problem. Be professional when doing so. But definitely report it. Say, this is what is out there. This is what is being flagged.
And with that, thank you all so much for listening. We really appreciate everything horror for having us come on and talk about this problem. Talk about this ongoing situation. There'll be more to report, so check back in. And until then, thank you all, and don't forget to keep making that scary. Bye.
Wow, thank you so much, Jeff and Haley, for your thought. That's really great. And you got to do professional about it. You got to look at it professionally, because otherwise we're going to be looking like we don't really know what we're talking about. It's going to be unprofessional. But us small people can only do so much, and when it comes down to it, we need the bigger names involved, and without the bigger name, we are not going to be looked at. But unfortunately, with the big names, they probably find it as an advantage because now we got the quiet people like us quiet. Now it's all about the big names. It's all about the big brand. It's all about the money. And with that being said, I want to right now say if you head over to everythinghorror.bigcartel.com, you can purchase the Horror is Healthy deep red shirt to help spread awareness. And just like they said about the whole, they're not trying to copyright this or anything, neither am I. I'm just trying to make this shirt to help you guys wear it and wear it proud, to show off, even in public, that it is okay to love horror. And by doing so, you're making a statement loud. And with that being said, every donation is literally going to be going to some type of charity, whether it's going to be One Up on Cancer or some type of animal shelter that does not kill. We're going to figure it out. But right now, if you would like a shirt, I'll say it again, head over to everythinghorror.bigcartel, that is BIGCARTEL.com, and order yourself a Horror is Healthy deep red shirt. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to have your attention from a recent interview that we did from Douglas Ewen, who is Canadian, and he also has something to say about Instagram censoring hashtag horror. And this is what Douglas has to say. Take it away, Doug.
Yeah, so I've been following this social media ban now, and this new hashtag that says not horror. And the most recent one, too, that I actually really liked was, and I don't remember, I don't want to say the wrong title. I don't know if it was Rue Morgue or it was Fangoria, but they said, you know, Jordan Peele's new thriller, Us, and then he literally tweeted, all it was one sentence. It said, Us is a horror film. And that's all it said. And he had to correct them, and I was like, hey, that's good. And I use the hashtag horror all the time on Instagram. Every horror director does. That's how you get it. Like, I search it all the time. If I'm not searching support indie film, I'm searching hashtag horror to see what people are up to and what they're making. And I go to search the thing, and it fucking says, like, can we help you with something? And I look at the numbers, and I'm like, there's 15 million hashtags of horror, and now you're telling me it doesn't exist. And I know they used to ban it once in a while back in the day, and now people are getting shadow banned because being a horror movie director or posting something about, say, like a scene from Reanimator that might have violence in it, people are getting banned off Instagram. So obviously this outrages a bunch of people, and then you start getting like blamed, an entire movie genre being blamed for teenage suicide and things of this nature, saying that we're you know, disgusting and that you guys are the reason why, you know, these kids are getting like fucked up. And I'm telling people, like, hey, the day where you start, this is the problem with 2019, is the day, and then I guess a kid just killed himself over PUBG, if you're familiar with that video game. And now they're saying, well, we should ban the video game. And I was like, you guys can't take specific items or like the horror genre or a video game and start applying it to suicide. What you guys need to do is start putting more counseling in school, or at least showing these parents statistics on what kids are being, you know, why they're depressed or what's happening. It wasn't PUBG that killed the kid. It was depression or probably being bullied or having such anxiety that when he loses, it happens. But that's completely ignored. And then what they do is they just blame an entire group of people, or they blame a certain thing, like, you know, like Eminem's lyrics or something like that. And it's just, 2019 is absolutely fucking ridiculous, and it's driving me crazy. So I go on Instagram, and I think to myself, like, you know what? I'm gonna look up some ridiculous shit, and I'm gonna see what's not banned. So hashtag Satan, not banned. Hashtag violence, not banned. Hashtag murder, not banned. Hashtag anal beads, not banned. Hashtag stabbing, not banned. And these words are gonna be a little hard to, like, I'm not saying that I say these words or anything like that, but hashtag fag, not banned. Hashtag retarded, not banned. And when you actually look these hashtags up, they'll show pictures of actors. They'll show pictures of people. when you look them up. Like, that is absolutely, if that's not a slap in the face, the fact that you can't look up hashtag horror and you can't find a picture of Pinhead anymore from Hellraiser, but you can look up an actual slur that puts down an entire group of people, like the entire LGBTQ community, or entire, people with just brain dysfunction at all. You can look up a hashtag that is literally a horrible word to say, and you will actually see pictures of people. And now that kid, that one little young girl there, that she ended up committing suicide and ended up using the hashtag horror, that was one of the reasons why they're first suggesting it. And it's absolutely insane to think that something that's been along for so long, and people don't realize that now that the internet's around, we see these horrific things. We see crime at a rate we've never seen crime, but people don't understand that crime has never been this fucking low, especially in the United States. Like, gun controls are, I agree Canada has bigger laws on gun control and stuff like that. Like, I understand that much. That's not something I want to get into, but I'm just saying, people don't understand that, yeah, you see it everywhere because we have access to everything. But the fact is, the statistics don't lie. It's never been lower. Racism, yeah, it's growing, but if it's not growing in black or white, it was almost like when Trump won, and people that like Trump or don't like Trump, it's like they created their own group of racism. It's like people were scared to say they supported someone because they were afraid of getting hurt. These issues don't get addressed, but then they can completely blame the world's violent tendencies and problems on a genre of fiction. And it's absolutely outrageous me to the point where it just makes me want to cause more fucking trouble. If 2019 is looking for a villain, I will absolutely volunteer for that position. I will take it and I will rub it in their shitty little face. This decade or this year or whatever it is has done nothing but piss me off every morning I wake up. When I saw that hashtag horror thing was banned, that's when I'm more passionate about that than I was talking about Bi-Polaroid. I haven't been so outraged in a long time. I can't believe, it's not even when people say like, oh, snowflakes and everyone's so, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not even one of those people that do that, like, oh, you're such a pussy, you don't like watching horror movies. I mean, I understand not everyone wants to see someone's head be cut off. But when you get people in power saying this is the reason why our children kill themselves, or this is the reason why our society's falling apart, or it's just, I don't know when I just hope it doesn't get any worse than it does, because James Bond can kill 50 people in a movie and get PG-13. And Jason Voorhees kills 11, and apparently it's the worst thing you ever seen in your entire life, because when he does it, there's blood, which would actually happen in real life. When James Bond does it, they just do backflips. But I mean, if you look at these Die Hard films, Lethal Weapon films, which I love and grew up on, you have hundreds of people dying, buildings exploding, all kinds of crazy shit, and not a single thing. The horror genre, which even like with Terrifier, like I was telling you, it's absolutely, there's scenes where you're just like cringing. But at the same time, if I was in a restaurant and I looked over and saw Art the Clown, I would just kindly ask for the bill and get the fuck out of there. That's what I'm saying. This stuff doesn't exist in real life. It's unbelievable that something this large on such a large platform can even be banned. Like, if anything, we're just going to find another way around it. Like the hashtag not horror that's going around, that's great and everything, but it's just, it's outrageous. It's almost that they're trying to destroy a genre that it's necessary. And it's not necessary because I need to, like I said, my film has someone who dies in it. Does that mean I murdered someone? No, it doesn't. A matter of fact, I happen to be a pretty good normal citizen. But the fact remains is that, people have these ideas, these thoughts, and they explore certain aspects of life that not other people do, and it doesn't mean they're bad people. And if people are watching this thinking to themselves like, well, I'm going to become a serial killer, then who's to say there's not a kid out there that's thinking like, I'm going to start thinking that I live in the Matrix. It's unbelievable. I don't even know how it's real. I don't think I've actually come to terms with it yet, that they're like being able to put a movie genre and associate it with suicide, associate it with violence, associate it with the corruption of society. when we started doing things like that as like apparently civilized human beings, that's when you start losing that feeling of like community, especially within film. Like film's only been around for 150 years. Like it's a new art platform, and it's probably one of the biggest because it's visual, sounds, it's everything. It stimulates your body on every single aspect. And there's nothing wrong with being afraid. There's nothing wrong with having fear. In fact, if I could suggest anything to anybody, it's do one thing a day that scares the shit out of you, because that's the only real true time you're going to test who you are. And to think that there are people out there that are creative who are doing great things for this genre, like Jordan Peele, like even he had to correct magazine, like a national publication, he had to correct it. That's when you're getting to the point, like, why am I even doing this if, like, I don't even want to say you people, I don't even know who the hell is responsible for doing something of this magnitude, but it's when you start censoring art because it's having an impact on reality, that's when you start to have that thin blur between what is reality. Like, you can't blame fiction for what happens in our real lives. Human beings have always done this since the start of time. I'm sorry we have the internet now and we're able to see it, but believe it or not, just be happy we're not all Vikings again. That's my opinion on that. I think it's absolutely outrageous. And Facebook and Instagram, I don't know. I don't know if you guys think it's a good thing and I just kind of just went and shit on it, but no, I think it's absolutely outrageous that they think this is even acceptable to do, especially to how many people make a living off this. The Void, for my city alone, which is a steel plant city that the steel plant has pretty much shut down. Now we have from 30,000 people employed to 1,300 people employed. That movie comes in here, it gets made, and it employs, 300 people for the time that it's during production. Also, every person on crew gets $160 a day to spend on hotel, movies, transportation that they're spending in that city. And they're going to wipe out a giant genre that has, it does boost the economy. It does create jobs. It does create fantasies. But I have never want to go out and wanted to see if I can get away with murder just because I watched The House that Jack built, or just because I watched a David Cronenberg film, or I watched Antichrist. Doesn't mean I want to go and cut my pecker off. It's just, I can't believe that this could even... It's insane to me. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around the whole thing. This only happened to me a couple days ago, but like hashtag Satan's completely fine to look up, and you're watching people show you how they bring the Dark Lord from below, and then you go look up a horror movie which is complete fiction, and you can't. Or like I said, you look up the most terrible words, and you're seeing pictures of people. Like, it's like if you went and hashtag the N-word and saw a picture of like an African American or like Jamaican or something like that, like how horrible is that? But you go look up hashtag horror and you can't even see your favorite movies. Like, I would say Jaws is a horror movie. Aliens, Ridley Scott, he made his entire goddamn name off that stuff. And this is just a slap in the face to a bunch of artists and it's not saying that these artists just want to kill people and just want to make a bunch of gory shit to scare you. Like, some of these people have gone on to do different things. These people, they're just completely normal people, and they don't make these movies so people will hurt themselves. This is just, we should be lucky we have people like this, that we have this kind of outlet that you can sit down and watch a scary movie with your friends and then later on go put on a comedy, right? It's just, to think that media can influence society on such a large scale, but then have the chaos that we have with politics, say the corruption, and just police, the people that actually fucking protect us. And to see that kind of corruption on a normal human scale in reality, and then have the balls to be like, well, I wouldn't be a bad person if I didn't see, Friday the 13th. Like, no, fuck yourself. You're a bad person. You shouldn't have done that. Like, that Friday the 13th had nothing to do with that. Like, it's unbelievable. I am absolutely outraged about it, and I think a lot of people are going to have a huge backlash on this. If anything, I think it's going to be back up and running in a couple of weeks. There's no way they can... Like I said, the numbers when I typed it in were over 15 million, and now that's just gone. And that's like the number one hashtag I have to use too. And it's not easy marketing yourself in a world where anyone can become insta famous or anything like that. And now you just put more limitations on a genre that was already hard to begin with. So I just don't find it very fair, and I don't find that they had a good enough reason to do it. I totally understand teen suicide and depression. Like I said, I suffer from mental illness myself, and I totally sympathize with those people, and I understand, but I think the problem is not having enough access to counseling, not having enough access to the actual resources that we need to control these things from happening. Instead, we'd rather spend money on finding a false problem to censor than spend money on our education system or spend money on free counseling for children or teenagers that have these kind of violent thoughts or depression in their life. And I find it absolutely just pisses me off. Different time, 2019, I don't think needs to be this. But I mean, it's the pendulum effect, right? You have to go both sides really hard until it lands back in the middle. So I'm just hoping it lands back in the middle. But right now, censorship is a huge thing. And when you start censorshiping art, that's when people begin to break it down with their own personal opinions. Like, there's a difference between looking at something like the Mona Lisa, like I mentioned earlier, and saying, like, you know what, I really don't resonate with that. And then having someone say, I think that's a very beautiful picture. And then having a discussion, and now we're at a point in time where people will say, I don't like that, and here are 30,000 of my own individual personal feelings towards it, and if you don't agree or disagree with those personal feelings, I'm going to tell you how much of an asshole you are. It's just, that's when you start destroying art. And then when you start blaming art for destroying society, you obviously have some kind of confusion of what's real and what's not. That's the way I look at it. I mean, if I was a parent or a friend, and I have experienced things like this in my life, of someone who committed suicide, and I was told, well, you know, I was sat down and I was explained, well, you know, if you didn't show them these movies or they didn't play these video games, you know, they'd still be here today. And it's like, no, it's there's just a lot more things that we could do to help people in need than start telling them what they can and cannot do or watch or say. That's just, it's unbelievable that we live in a society like that. The things that go by and the things that get canceled out, it's just not making any sense. It's like, it's almost like they're going after it to try and end it. It's almost like the powers that be are like, you know what, we have to get out of this phase and move into phase 2, and we got to do that and social media has such an impact on people's lives. Like I was saying, like that's basically, like for me, for example, like I said, I've done podcasts, I've done interviews, I've got publicity without even showing a lot of my stuff, and that's because of social media. It's a free platform for you to build yourself, and slowly they're breaking that down so individuals cannot do that in the certain art that they're in. And that's absolutely horrible, because I follow a lot of stuff on Instagram. Even you, for example, Everything Horror Podcast, like I'm guessing you use that hashtag a million times, and you're not promoting, you know, let's go chop people in half. It's insane. It's just they took something so large and put it on something, attached it to something so small. And to me, the fact that people actually believe that, like, you gotta remember, like, your podcast has the word horror. The genre. There's Canadians in Calgary that have, I don't know if you're familiar with, I'm not trying to plug other people on your show or anything, but Nightmare on Film Street, like they're Canadian. I follow them. Fangoria. Bloody Disgusting, like these people use that, like that's how I find these people. And some of their articles are like about my favorite directors, about what they're doing, what equipment they're using, what they're making next year. And now, like, that's just one avenue that's gone because they decided to attach it to something so small, and they took out a large scale of people's marketing. I think it's a shame.
Now how do you think why do you think horror is healthy?
Well, like I said, I mean, like when I read a lot about the Japanese too, and the Japanese, like, they have stuff like you wouldn't even believe, that they just absolutely insane. What they say is that's why, you know, a lot of their people are so peaceful in society, because they have this outlet that they can enjoy this stuff through entertainment instead of doing it through life. And horror is healthy because I don't know what world you live in, but I find it more horrific to read the fucking Twitter feed and read the newspaper than I do watching a horror movie. And this gives you a complete fantasy reality of adrenaline when you're watching this killer try and chase down this woman or this man or these teenage kids, and you have this adrenaline pumping through you, you have fear, and at the end of it, boom, there's credits because people fucking made that. And it gave you an hour and a half experience of shitting your pants, and you don't get that by cooking dinner. You don't get that by watching, Family Guy. That's like, you get that to laugh. And people want that in their lives. People want to be afraid. People want to be scared. People enjoy this kind of stuff. It's a lifestyle for a lot of people, first of all. And it is healthy to understand that there is real horror in real life. And that stuff actually is disgusting to read. And horror is healthy in entertainment because it entertains you while you're being scared on a level because you're trying to unfold a story. You're not scared because literally there's an image in front of you. Well, at times, there's jump scares and stuff. But you're going into something knowing it's scary. You chose to do that. It's not like someone held you down, tied you to the chair, and said, now you're going to watch every Friday the 13th movie, and then we're going to release you and watch you go murder 30 people. Like, that stuff doesn't happen. You chose to sit down, pay the $5, pay the $15 to get into the theater. Whatever avenue you use to get the damn thing, you chose to do it because it's entertaining. And it's not entertaining you in a way that you laugh. It's not entertaining you in a way that you feel love or that you feel regret or crying. Those are other genres. This is a genre where you sit down and you're like, I'm going to turn off all the lights and I'm going to scare the shit out of myself, or teenagers use it to get laid. There's a lot of stuff that this genre does for people, and it's unbelievable that entertainment's now being used as a cop-out for society shitting on itself, which is done for the blink of the eye. Human beings have been around in the first place. So horror's healthy for a lot of reasons. It's entertainment, it's art, it exists in our world in such a way that if people really knew the kind of horrors every single day that exist, I don't even think they'd blink an eye at a serial killer movie. I don't even think they'd blink an eye at watching Freddy Krueger come into your nightmares if people were actually aware of the things that happen around this world on a minute basis. It's just, horror's healthy, it's a great outlet, it's a great time, it's entertaining, it's art, people put everything they have into it. And like I said, it takes a different kind of person to make this shit, and that person is not necessarily evil, that person's not necessarily bad. It's just, some people think that way. And are they doing it? No. Are they committing crimes? No. It's too bad that it gets linked with all this terrible stuff, because I've never ever, and I'm guessing you're the same way, you have a podcast that revolves around this genre, and after you're done this podcast, you and your fiance probably have dinner and enjoy a movie, and you're in love and you're having a good night. You guys aren't sitting there eating a person right now, a bunch of cannibals. So it's absolutely ridiculous to think that way.
True. Now, my last question, Doug, for this topic is, what do you think could help fix this issue, I guess? Like, what do you think we should do to move forward with this issue?
Keep doing it. Should we go harder and test the barriers and stuff like that? Like, I think that's just natural of humans to do. As I evolve as an artist, I'm always going to try and, rules are meant to be broken, not laws. I'm not saying go break laws, but, rules are meant to be broken. Just keep doing it. Don't stop. They want to take it away from you. No matter what, that audience will always be there. They'll always be there. They'll find your stuff. There will never be a day where it's completely gone. And if something this small does destroy the genre, that's because everybody gave up. You can't give up. You just got to keep going. I'm not going to start making romance movies now because I can't use a hashtag. And even 10 years from now, you can't show blood on the big screen. I'll still make horror movies. So just keep pumping it out. Just keep going. Don't give up. Don't change who you are because someone else wants you to.
All right, guys, here's roundtable number 2, and with me, well, you should already know who this is, but with me, we got Stacy Cox, and we got Jed Bryan. So,
how's it going?
Welcome, ladies and germs. Wait.
Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Well, thank you, Jed. And thank you,
guys.
Stacy.
Thank you. Actually, it's funny because my coworker says the same thing. Hello, ladies and germs. That's what so I laugh.
Well, I gotta give Jed some type of bullying. Well, I don't want to say bullying, but I gotta pick on him one way or another.
There you go.
Yeah,
I got thick skin. I can take it.
Oh, geez, he's got my address too. So, oh God,
yeah,
I can only imagine. Anyway, so let's dive right in. So, we'll start with Stacy. So, Stacy, what did you think about this whole Instagram censoring #horror?
I was confused at first, and then when I looked more into it, I guess I got a little aggravated. I guess like now everything is so politically correct, and it's so annoying that I guess these social media sites are trying to crack down on whatever the underlying issue is, and it seems to be what people are. I don't know if it's people are inflicting self-harm or they're just whatever acts they're doing. I feel like horror is taking the bad rep for it. And I feel like it's not fair. Horror has been, I don't know, I guess horror really has been the black goat in terms of, cinema entertainment in general. You look at things like comedy, romance, and society tends to like that stuff more. So society tends to like all the, the bright and vibrant stuff. Meanwhile, you got horror, and it's like it's got this small little cult following. And now it's like, the fans of horror cannot, it's like we can't just be, and it's, I don't know. It's annoying.
Well, when I first found out about it, I noticed that some of my posts on Instagram and stuff were not getting as many likes and stuff like that, and I wasn't sure what was going on. And then I'd seen where you'd actually posted about how the horror hashtag was being censored. So I was like, what? So whenever I went ahead and clicked on it, and it said, this content's graphic and, may cause may lead self-harm type stuff. And I was just like, whoa, this is ridiculous, because I feel like Stacy had said that, horror has always gotten a bad rap for, being, trying to show the horrors that are actually out there. And for some reason, just because, a certain group of people like this type of stuff, it's, people are automatically assume that, it's crazy people who are, probably going to commit suicide who enjoy this type of stuff, which, horror, brings people from all different religions, walks of life. It brings them all together. And I mean, it's, it's censorship at its worst. And I'm afraid with the political correctness that's going on, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. And I mean, you look at comedy, for instance. I mean, they're even starting to, take hits on, comedy movies on what they can and can't do. And, even people that do stand up, are getting, hit with, you're being too, mean to this group. And people are just kind of forgetting that, sometimes you don't take yourself so serious. I mean, if people think, just because you watch a horror movie, there's a chance you may cause self-harm to yourself. I mean, that's absurd. I mean, I don't think there's any statistic out there that supports this. I mean, I remember whenever the Columbine shooting happened, and they were trying to, tie Marilyn Manson in with that just because these kids maybe had listened to his music. I mean, it's absurd. So I really hope that they will reinstate the hashtag as just a regular hashtag. I mean, whenever you have, other hashtags out there that, show like, like partial nudity and stuff like that do not have the same censorship. I don't understand that at all.
Yeah, it's crazy, especially like if you look up like crime scene or true crime scene or true crime or something like it's or even violence. Like it's ridiculous what you actually find that is not censored like the hashtag horror is. And from what I've learned too from I believe last roundtable, and for those listening, this is like a few weeks ahead of this round 2 table, just so you know. As I remember Dan Wright, well, Dan from Danno of the Dead, he was mentioning that this kind of started with the censorship because of that one girl that I believe committed suicide and used the hashtag. I think it was like maybe New Zealand or something, or maybe it was that really bad incident from New Zealand. But I remember something about a little girl. Either way, so that's what I remember hearing about. Because of the fact that she used the hashtag horror, it got slammed with the warning, which I think everything else that she used ended up getting a warning too, whatever that was or those were.
No, I haven't heard about that.
And see, I mean, if that is the case, I mean, it's horrible that, someone actually took their life, but, and used the hashtag. But to me, it's like a knee-jerk reaction just because people live stream murders on Facebook and you don't see censorship of live stream or anything like that. You don't see that there's like a delay on your live stream before it goes up. There's not like a 30-second delay so they can have someone who monitors what you do. So to me, it's that's the reason why it's a horrible excuse. And it's just I believe that horror's always been the lower end of everybody's radar. I mean, Jordan Peele finally came through and won something, but it's like the lead actress in Hereditary, she should have won an award, and she wasn't even nominated. And it's just society, the mainstream society, always putting the thumb on horror and trying to put it down in the mud.
Right.
That is an excellent point, Jed. And I remember it's not too long ago. What was this? Maybe a year or so ago, and the one what was his name? The one guy who I think it happened on Easter. I remember it happened on Easter, and he shot this elderly guy.
Yeah, he shot him and walked up and shot him, right? Yeah.
Right. And you can see that on Facebook Watch or, whatever that is. Yeah. So I'm like, why is it that horrors get like, honestly, when it comes to people committing all of these, acts of violence and everything, that's a very personal issue. It's something that is underlying with them and their personal lives. I feel like the horror entertainment, world should not get the bad rep for that because there's some screwed up person in society who has pretty much been screwed up since whenever. You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, because we have all these people who are screwed up and something wrong with them, we have to censor horror. It's like, that's bull crap. That is bull.
I do like what Jordan Peele did when Us was about to come out, where everybody was trying to say that Us is a thriller film, which I don't know if you guys have caught on to that, but somebody was actually telling me, I think it might have been Dan, if not, it was somebody else for sure, but they were like, have you noticed that lately with magazines and stuff that if you read specific ones or hear specific ones, everybody is mentioning the word thriller instead of horror. And that's what I liked about Jordan Peele, is that he came back with that one-liner that was like, Us is a horror movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad because they try to make horror a bad word, and it's like horror. Covers so many different genres, from books to movies. You look at the classic Universal monster films. Those are considered a horror film, and by today's standards, stuff that's on SpongeBob could be even more scarier than some of the Universal monster pictures.
That's true.
And it's like, I don't understand. Horror is such a it covers so many different subgenres that why would you censor something like that? It just blows my mind. And it's I feel like it's just they're trying to do another little knock against horror so it doesn't get to the mainstream like it used to be. So
I know, Jed. I'll actually start you off with this one, but just to shine in a little bit, I'm a big fan of Universal Monsters, and to me, those are the original horror films. It's I don't really anytime anybody says anything about classics, my brain goes right to Universal Monsters because those were. Those were really the start of the horror, besides the other stuff as well that came after. But those really started to spike the hits that I made. Yeah, exactly. And it makes me wonder too with some of these old films if they were to be remade this year or even in the next couple years. Here's a good example. Look at the original Nosferatu. That was, 1922? And, that got remade in,
it was in the 70s, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, 1979, maybe? Somewhere around that neighborhood? 78,
I think. 79, 78, somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that even... No, wait. That was the documentary thing that they did there, the Shadow of the Vampire, where they had William Dafoe as the vampire.
Okay, gotcha. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. But
so when you go to look at that, though, we can't say a vampire movie is a thriller. It's more of a horror, really. It's more of a vampiric horror flick. And if somebody tried to use that hashtag to try to promote Nosferatu, it's just not going to work. It is, but it isn't. It's really weird now how Instagram works. If you go search Instagram with the hashtag horror, we'll see on the recent one, we're not going to see any new one. But if you go to the other page, whatever it's called, I can't quite remember, but we see all the popular posts and not the recent ones. So in order for us to see the quote unquote recent hits of the hashtag horror, we have to actually wait for it to become popular, apparently, which just makes no sense.
Yeah, it's just technology's changing so fast, and I feel like the faster it changes, the faster these larger social media platforms are able to change their guidelines and apply more censorship to something that was originally an idea of being something that was a sense of freedom instead of being censored.
Right. And it's that, and just to clarify, it's top. The category is called top. So it's mainly you're looking at the top post with the hashtag horror. While recent just says, we've hidden posts for the hashtag horror to protect our community from content that may encourage behavior that can cause harm and even lead to death. And yeah.
So it's outrageous.
So if your post is not one of the top posts, then nobody's going to see your post. Pretty much is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And so anyway, what I'm trying to say too is with Jed, with you were kind of you were saying it about your stuff, now with this, how does the hashtag horror affect you? And you kind of stated it already, but how does it affect other people as well?
Well, as your listeners may or may not know, but I wrote and directed and also acted in a film called Unlisted Owner, and it made the Amazon Top 10 in 2017. And we were actually putting out a Blu-ray release. It's going to drop on Amazon and other platforms on April 30th. So we were gearing up for the Blu-ray release, and different articles were written. Everything Horror wrote an article on it, and other horror news platforms had. And whenever we post the image on Instagram and use the hashtag horror, I would notice that my posts, the more recent ones, were not getting even half as many comments and hearts as previous ones. And and it's just it really it not only does it censor the content, but it also hurts filmmakers and horror news sites and just anyone in the horror community in general. It really hurts the flow of information, or for people to hear about your project you're working on, or your podcast you have, or even upcoming horror events or horror festivals where you can meet some of the biggest names in horror. And it's just it really hinders, it really hurts an industry, not just people on Instagram posting pictures of just Halloween stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it hurts the whole entire industry, that people make their livings doing stuff in the horror industry. Even haunted houses and prop makers, and journalists. There's so many people that are touched by the horror industry in general, that to censor the hashtag is just it's very, very sickening, in my opinion.
Yes, and it affects Stacy, because Stacy, she's a podcaster, she's a blogger.
Yes.
She she always has something up about the horror genre, like some type of cool thing, like an old school poster. Like, yes, Stacy, you do a lot actually, and have you actually seen a difference with your posts at all?
Um, well, I can't really say I see a difference because, honestly, for me, uh, on like when I was on, social media, when I was on Facebook, I didn't really have the crowd, the followers that were into horror like I was. I mean, I had maybe there were a handful of friends that were as into horror as me. So I go posting, different, just like covers of horror films, pretty much keeping people up to date. Like, oh, check this film out. This is a good film. And then I do a brief little, review or whatever. And maybe I get, I'll be lucky to have 5 people like the post or comment on the post. Then I go to make a group, a little side group dedicated to horror blogging only, trying to keep pretty much my passion for horror away from, my personal life and everything, the personal side of Facebook. And I had nine followers on the group, and maybe the same 2 or 3 people liking the post, or actually engaging, sharing some posts as well. So I would say I didn't really get the turnout as like you guys did. You took it really professional, and you've been like professional at it much longer than I have. So I can't really say for myself that I, I'm getting the same outcome. And even on Instagram, I want to say I had a bigger followers base for horror on Instagram and Twitter than I did on Facebook, because it's something about Facebook where people just it's like people just go there for their daily drama. You know what I'm saying? And it's so annoying, or maybe it's just me, but I always got that crowd on Facebook.
I don't think you're alone.
Yeah, but on
I don't
Instagram
think
and
you're alone at all.
but on Instagram and Twitter, people are way more professional. You go share a post about anything horror, and I got more feedback or more engagement on that than I ever could on Facebook. Especially Twitter. And maybe because Twitter is just so fast paced to where, it's much more business oriented. But then, like on Instagram, and maybe this was just me, but on Instagram, I noticed like a lot of people are just so like into themselves that you got that one person that is constantly uploading selfies, or constantly uploading just like unnecessary random videos of whatever. And a part of me hates that whole TV part, the Facebook watch, Instagram TV. Like, I don't mind, like, your post, Paul, when y'all go on Instagram TV and everything, DecayMag, I don't mind that. But it's the people who just like get on there just for the sake of being seen,
The attention. The attention.
Yes, the attention seekers. So,
look at me.
exactly. And it's like, I'm like, is it just me? Am I like a magnet for these type of people or what? So, but, uh-huh.
You're reminding me of a story real quick. That reminded me of one of my friends who I did a horror short with back almost 5-6 years ago, and I remember she was like telling me one time from Instagram that she was trying to look for like yoga videos on Instagram, and all she could find is like people's asses in the camera, and like nothing really about like yoga, or if it is yoga, it's just like the ass point of view, and it's just like, what the fuck?
Well, yeah, like you don't ever want to knock anyone's shine. You know what I'm saying? It's like whatever works for you works for you. But you got all these like different posts about what is it, like feminist posts and everything. Like, I've never been so irritated with the feminist movement, but they go like, love your body and all that, while they're just like pretty much making out on camera. And I'm just like, now they got this new way of working out and yoga and everything where they're halfway naked and their butts in the camera. It's like, dude, seriously? Like, this is just attention seeking. And I feel like we are
in horror. In horror censor, that's the
yeah. But see, yeah, I feel like we are in a time now where everything is me, me, me. You know what I'm saying? Everybody is just pretty much just like out for themselves. Everybody is attention seekers now. And it gets back to the point where you got these people who are half naked or naked on social media, showing nipples, stuff like that. Meanwhile, horror is censored. Like, and back to the point about the, showing like actual crime on Facebook. Yet horror is censored. Horror is getting the bad rap. And remember back when, like, even say like the music industry, hip hop rap got a bad rap because, oh, now, you got these kids who want to sag and who wants to, you know what I'm saying? It's like, wait a minute, don't blame that on the music industry. No. This is another underlying issue. So when it comes to horror being censored and they say, you can commit self-harm or any kind of harm, no, it's an underlying issue. It's what it is. It has to do with the person. Like, these people are already fucked up. Ain't no movie, no TV series, no nothing is going to influence this person. They're already fucked up. And that's what it comes down to. I mean, as many, like, I've been watching a lot of those investigation discovery shows, lately. Who the bleep did I marry, or Deadly Women and all that. I'm not going around here killing people. You know what I'm saying? It has to do with the person themselves, and then like back to where the whole Slender Man thing and kids
Momo.
kill another kid. Yeah, Momo. It's like, but it's like,
Is the Momo hashtag censored?
I don't know, but you know what? I think it was I forget if it was a friend of mine or my cousin who showed me. I don't know if it was a fan made poster or if this is actually real, but Momo is being turned into a movie. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. But someone showed me a poster for a Momo movie, and I'm hoping it was a fan made poster and not something that's actually in the works.
And to answer your question, you had no. Momo hashtag is not censored.
Oh.
Boom. My point exactly. Momo is technically covered under the horror banner, but if someone uses the hashtag Momo, it will not be censored if they don't use the hashtag horror with it. So it's like, if you're going to pick and choose, you should censor stuff that, people, there was more of an outrage about the Momo thing than, there hasn't been a peep. You said about that, the story, but I hadn't heard of that story, but I'd heard of Momo. I'm sure everybody's heard of Momo. So to me, it's like, if you're going to censor something because of public outrage, the Momo one, the hashtag, to me, would have been the one that they would have censored instead of the hashtag horror, which, I don't agree. I don't believe in censorship. So, I don't think that they should have censored a hashtag. You can censor individual images, but having this warning come up about self-harm and stuff, if you're going to do that, you should do it for the Momo video that actually tells children to harm themselves. So, in my personal opinion, if you're going to do it, you should do it to the thing that's actually telling people to do harm to themselves.
Right. And also, to piggyback on that, you said this public, like outcry and outrage. Also with these, like, I guess these sensitive parents or hurt parents or whatever who, like, take for instance the scary stories to tell in the dark. You remember the old book, right? With the scary images and all that, the original book.
Of course.
And now you got this renovation with a different illustrator, and it's like, what the heck is this? Like, it's no longer, it doesn't have that scare factor that it did. Like, the illustrations were all changed. They're not scary anymore, and then you got like these angry parents or these sensitive parents who's like, oh, this is too scary for kids. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, it's like stuff like that. We got these we're in the sensitive society, but this is supposed to be like a free country and everything, free world, free country, free whatever. Like, everybody has the right to pick and choose what they like.
Yeah, I think those parents would be very upset with me because I got my kid an Unlisted owner T-shirt the other day. So,
hey, honestly, Lyric, when she was young, I think I want to say she had to be maybe 4 years old when she was watching Child's Play, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Leprechaun. One day she came to me and she's like, I want to watch Bad Dog. I'm like, what is Bad Dog? She pointed at Cujo, and I had no idea how she found out about Cujo. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. You know what I'm saying? So, and then I started thinking stuff like, am I a bad mother for my 4-year-old daughter's watching this stuff with me? The worst movie she's seen so far was, and I shouldn't say the worst, the goriest film she's seen so far was Hobo with a Shotgun. Yeah, Hobo. And honestly, that was because she wanted to. Like, I told her, go upstairs and watch TV. I'm going to watch my movie. And she decided to sit there with me. Now she's more into like Disney princesses now, and I'm glad, like, okay, let her get the bad dreams out the way. When she gets a little bit older, I could reintroduce her to that stuff. You know what I'm saying? But
there you go. Get her some Monster High dolls.
Right, exactly. But yeah, she was 4 years old watching all that with me. And heck, it's like, you have freedom of choice is what this is coming down to. Freedom of choice. If you like horror, whatever genre you may like, horror should not be, the black goat that it's always been, that taboo subject. Horror is such a taboo subject when it comes to society. Most of society turns a blind eye. That's why horror has us like, that cult following, because it's such a small following, because the rest of society is just turning the cold shoulder. Oh, I think it's very few in my family that, I like horror. Oh, I don't like that stuff. That stuff gives me nightmares. I can't watch that stuff. Like, what do you mean that stuff? That's
Right.
what horror has become, that stuff. And then, like, if you watch horror, if you like horror, you're crazy. You're a psychopath.
We
Are
need
you
help.
serious? Yeah, you need help. You know what I'm saying? Like the same thing like they do with goths. You're a goth. Oh, you must be crazy. Like, what are you talking about?
Right? Yeah, I mean, like I'm watching this. Like I just typed in that the crime scene the crime scene hashtag, and like of course I didn't get a warning, and I just literally just saw a video where this guy got shot, and then it's like a shootout. Now I'm watching one where this guy is trying to, I guess, kidnap a kid, and then this other person comes over to save the kid, and then this other guy with like a 4x4 comes over to try to take out the lady trying to save the kid. Like that's just crazy.
The saddest part about this whole deal is that, when did the fictional stuff become worse than the reality? And these tech, and these social media platforms' eyes, it doesn't make any sense to me. People will say, I can't watch horror stuff, I can't watch gory stuff, but yet they're watching, the ID channel. And I mean, stuff that actually really happened, and there's crime scene photos and actual video and stuff like that. So to me, it's like, I think people, because, horror existed, horror films existed way before, true crime, movies or documentaries and stuff like that. And, pictures weren't really shown to the public like they are today. So I feel like, since horror was kind of, it was born in a more, kind of, nicey time to where, we don't talk about that type of stuff, and it got that wrapped in, and it just is carried through time. And now, people want to see the reality based stuff, but for some reason the fictional stuff, I don't know why, but they just want to try to suppress it so much it's not even funny.
Yeah. And don't forget about all those world star, videos that people are always constantly posting, and you're up here watching these people fight. You got riots and shootouts and everything posted all across, social media. I'm just like, and it really disgusts me that people are so freely, posting these, like, who was right there videotaping while this is actually going on? All these rights and everything. Why is no one calling the police? Why is no one trying to break this up? You got
Exactly.
50. Meanwhile, it's like horror is the one that gets the bad rap. Like, are you serious? I just don't understand it.
I don't think we're going to, because I mean, look at like Dan and like the people over at 52 Weeks of Horror. They've sent in multiple emails asking why they did it. Dan started to personally like private message Instagram on Instagram, and no nothing in return yet of why horror was censored, and I don't think we're gonna get an answer.
And that's not like I will never forget this. It was some years ago, but someone posted a video. I think it was from World Star, but someone shared a video of this really younger. She looked like she had to be maybe 13 years old, and I think the headline was, she'll do anything for money. And meanwhile, you just, this guy is, doing her from behind, and like got her face to the camera, and I'm just like, oh my God, like this is disgusting. She had to be 13 years old. And I'm like, why is shit like this okay? Why aren't they cracking down on shit like that? That's shit that's actually happening in real life. Why is this okay? And then they would have just like make up this bull crap about horror. Oh, it can create harm or self-harm or whatever. It's like, oh, okay. If you say so.
Exactly. It's really weird. And to touch on your thing, Stacy, that gives us a great way to discuss how come us horror fans enjoy horror? Why do we say horror is healthy? And I say it's because, it's one of those genres where we can all have fun in, meet a lot of cool people, and meet a lot of interesting projects on top of just forgetting the real world by popping in that movie and trying to cheer for that bad guy or cheer for that one, protagonist or whoever, really. And it's just to kind of just make us, I guess, relax and just have fun. It's entertainment, nothing else.
Yeah, same for me. I would say that, overall, number one overall, it's fun and entertaining. But also, horror is also like, can be very real too. Like, okay, so, my very first horror movie at 8 years old, Child's Play, right? And then, like, just when I was back in my Lifetime movie days where, you have some damsel in distress who's being manipulated, deceived, and abused by her boyfriend or husband or whatever it may be. You got stuff like that. And then, just like these contents in these horror movies, it to me is also like an eye opener on the real world out there too. And like Jed mentioned before, like, I mean, it got all these different subgenres. And anything can pretty much be horror. He mentioned SpongeBob, and like I said, it goes back to my Lifetime movie network days when I was really heavy into Lifetime movie networks. And then, that one movie with the I think it was called Dying to Belong. She was trying everything to be in this sorority, and they were hazing, like made her doing hazing really hard to where I think hazing went wrong and she passed away. Just stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? And it also like gives you a glimpse on how some people can just be so messed up out here. And then you get to the true crime and all of that. So yeah, first and foremost, it is fun and entertaining for me, and then it's also, like I said, just that kind of also true to life factor as well.
And I would have to say for me that, there's a lot of nostalgia with horror for me. Ever since I was a kid, I've always been drawn to Mask and, and even, scaring people and being scared. I've always, enjoyed that. Usually like if you're at your house and, your wife or husband's in the other room or girlfriend or whoever, and you're hiding behind a door and they open the door and you're there and you scare them. Next thing you do is laugh. You have a good time. It's something fun and enjoyable. And and it's all about, people's reactions. And, I'm one of those types of people that, I feed off of, people's reaction. If they, they think something I said is funny, or, if I scare them and they, jump back, it's all about, the reaction to me, and then, and how you enjoy what you're watching. And I've always loved, classic horror movies, and just, seeing how they did the makeup and just, everything in general. And, there's so much about horror that I enjoy, and, it's just, it's in the end, it's just entertainment. It's all it is. And the think that someone wants to censor, entertainment, it's just wrong for sure.
Yes, I'm gonna fully 100% back what you just said, Jed. I mean, the whole censorship of entertainment is just ridiculous, and like I think it was Stacy that brought it up. Like, when did fiction become reality, kind of thing, and it's just that's all it is, really. We're just trying to have a good time, like you're saying. It's just nothing but get scared and laugh about it, or maybe share your tale of like, like this part in the movie was like so creepy. Like, I wasn't expecting this to get scared at this, and maybe somebody didn't get scared at it at that specific part, but maybe got scared at this, and it's kind of cool to have everybody come in and shine on their different views of looking at a specific movie, or maybe they read even a book where they thought the book was better than the movie, which is like 99.8% of the time anyway. But because a movie can only do so much unless you can get so much done with a bigger budget for like maybe a 3-hour film. But if you're looking at an hour and a half film, that's a lot of information that needs to get cut out.
Well, the thing that amazes me is, there are people out there that, talk badly about the horror industry and about, horror movies in general, when, they're sitting there watching, Game of Thrones and, Vikings and, all these other TV shows. Yeah, they're not horror, but they all have horror elements in it. I mean, if it shows a person being decapitated or someone being ripped to shreds or caught on fire, those are horror elements. I mean, war movies have horror elements, but it just amazes me that someone can sit there and watch something, like Game of Thrones, and then not be able to watch, something like, the new It movie, or, Unlisted Owner, just any movie out there that's, under the genre of, a horror, a typical horror film. But, people tend to forget that, some of their favorite TV shows have horror elements in it. And I think, until the public actually wakes up and realizes, yeah, actually I do kind of like the gory, grotesque stuff like that. I mean, I think that we're going to be, to where horror will be censored until people can finally realize, like, oh, I guess I do like some horror elements.
Exactly. And horror is such a big inspiration that it will make people even want to go out and start making practical effects. You know what I mean? Like they want to learn how to create the practical effects. And I mean, I'm amazed with some of the things I've seen. Like, have you guys seen that one girl that's like 9 years old? Like, some of her practical effects. Like, if you know who I'm talking about, like, she's very good for 9 years old.
Yeah, I mean, it's all art. I mean, horror. I mean, there's so much artistic stuff that goes into a horror movie. I mean, it literally is a work of art. I mean, from the makeup or the mask or just the look of the killer in a slasher movie, or the practical effects that they do on an actor or actress who gets hurt or injured in some way by the killer. I mean, it's all art in the end. And I mean, it's some people look at it as grotesque, but it's still art in the end. And it's just so cool and fascinating to think that someone was able to recreate something that's such a brutal looking, like, realistic effect. I mean, it's art in the end, and it's basically, a censorship on horror is a censorship on art in general.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's actually has been a long, like a never-ending discussion on just like the horror genre and creativity alone, and it go like not just like the censoring of hashtag horror, but also like we've talked a lot about originality and creativity, and how, like Hollywood doesn't really have any creative ideas, just a bunch of remakes and reboots. Meanwhile, you got the indie scene that that's where, all of the art lies. And it's annoying that some of these feels like these underground films that aren't lucky to have a theatrical release due to their content, because they're not rated R. And and then, like, say for instance, Rob Zombie's 31, and he had it was NC-17, but he had to get it cut down to a rated R to get a theatrical release. And Tusk, I remember Tusk was a limited release. I literally traveled 50 miles to go see that movie because no theaters close by was showing it. And I feel like horror is an art, regardless of the content that's in it. I don't care if it's something simple such as, child's play, or if it's more in depth like a Serbian film. I don't care. It's art, and I feel like every movie should have a theatrical release.
I like that Stacy. I mean, every film deserved to be on the big screen, and then for something like the Serbian film, that should definitely have a big ass warning saying like those type of gross films should definitely have that big type of warning, like, hey, like if you don't have a strong stomach or whatever, then you're not gonna like this. Pretty much, if you are a psychopath, you can watch it. Pretty much,
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say. Like, I hate saying it like that too, but because that goes back into saying like, horror is not okay, like we were talking about earlier. But in this case, you kind of need to say that, because otherwise, those type of movies won't be recognized anyway. Like, look at Cannibal Holocaust. Look at that big baffle with that thing,
Yeah.
and then look at Jaws. Look what happened with that movie. What it made people want to do. Like, it really is scary what horror movies can do with some audiences, but not as much anymore today as it did back in the day. Like I'm trying to say with like Jaws, people that watch Jaws, they wanted to go out and kill the sharks in the ocean, because that's literally what they thought sharks were. Is they're gonna destroy your boat and sink it just to eat you. Like, that's not the case.
Well, that's what the MPAA ratings are for. You got different ratings: rated G, rated PG-13, rated R, rated NC-17, not rated, rated X, whatever. That's why you got those different levels. And what sucks is that these theaters, they will only accept as far as an R rating. And nowadays these films that qualify as R ratings are not really like R ratings. Like, wait, what?
And a lot of people don't realize too that to acquire an MPAA rating, you have to pay several thousands of dollars to acquire an MPAA rating. And so that's why a lot of the indie titles are actually unrated, because it's hard for the indie filmmakers and stuff to be able to get their money back. And, that's just a cost that, I mean, as long as, stores will still carry the titles if they're unrated, it's kind of pointless to have the MPAA rating. And, and I'm not sure if theaters require you to have an MPAA rating to show a film, but I mean, more so than not, you usually see that the ones that are in the theaters are the ones with the MPAA rating. But yeah, it actually does cost money to be able to get one of those.
Just to shine in on you real quick, Jed, didn't you look into that for your film?
Yeah, I did. And for Unlisted Owner, I looked into doing it. And that's the reason Unlisted Owner is unrated, was because I felt like with the money we had already spent on the title, that it was kind of pointless to get an MPA rating since it wasn't going to have a theatrical nationwide or worldwide theatrical release. So, and I had also discussed it with the distributor, and the distributor told me the same exact thing, that you can get one if you want, but it's really not going to change anything. So, your movie will be registered with the Motion Picture Association of America, but if it's on IMDb, what's really the point?
All right. Well, the last thing that I can think of, unless you got, and afterwards, if you guys have anything else that we haven't talked about that you want to bring up, feel free to. But the last thing I can think of for us to really talk about for this Instagram censoring bullshit is, what are your thoughts on what we can do to help make this move forward to maybe try to get it uncensored, or how can we fix this really? Stacy, I'll start with you this time. What do you think we could do to help this situation out?
I guess I think enough people need to complain about it. Like enough people need to constantly blow up, Instagram's inbox asking why, pretty much like a online or social media boycott, so to speak. I think that's pretty much where it starts. Because if not enough people speak up about it, speak up against it, and boycott it, then nothing much is going to get done. They're just going to like win, and it'll all just like kind of pass over. But enough people do need to care.
Yeah, I completely agree. Jed, what are your thoughts on this?
I think what you're doing is, it really helps in the process. The more people who hear about it, because I actually didn't know what was going on until you had mentioned something to me about it. And then whenever I looked myself, I was like, wow, this is crazy. I would not have known because, I usually look at the hashtag horror films and stuff like that. I usually go through that on Instagram, but I do use the hashtag horror quite a bit. But horror does cover such a big umbrella. I usually just go to the horror films or something like that hashtag, which is not censored. But yeah, I feel like, educating, the horror community about, what is happening right now with, the title that, that all of us fall under. And I think there's a lot of people out there that probably don't even realize it. They just use the hashtag hoping someone will, find their post through that hashtag, and then, to come to find out that it's actually, this thing comes up that says, that, hey, the content you're looking at, may cause you to do self-harm and all this other stuff is just, just absurd. And at least Instagram hasn't completely censored the content and taken it off altogether. But, having that warning come up and to be so specific, I could understand maybe if they wanted to do a thing that says, warning possible graphic content or something like that. I could possibly understand that. But the way they actually word it is just, terrible. And the fact they only go after just that hashtag horror, they don't go after, true crime, or I guarantee you that, skinny dipping or, anything, butts or anything like that is not censored. So it's like, for some reason that out of everything is censored, and that's the, the most outrageous part. But I feel that, campaigns to, educate the horror community about it, doing podcasts, doing, write-ups in magazines, and, just interviews with people who are affected by it. I think that's really, really helps.
Oh yeah. Another thing that I think it was Dan that mentioned, and this got me really thinking, is now we know the hashtag horror got hit really good, and what do you think? Actually, let me rephrase this. Let me try to figure out the best way to word this. Now, because of that word horror, do you guys feel like the other hashtag with that word could also be affected?
I mean, from what I've clicked on, I mean, I don't think they are. But I mean, I could see to where they could eventually go to that, to where they, spread out anything with the word horror in it would be, have that, thing come up that says, self-harm and, all that stuff. And I just, it's just terrible. And hopefully it doesn't come to that. But, whenever they start on something, it just opens the door. Once they get their foot in to, put stuff up like that, it just opens the door to where they can do it on anything.
Yeah, I haven't really tried looking up, hashtag horror with it, because I know when I did post stuff, I use hashtag horror, hashtag movie posters or hashtag movies and everything. So I never really tried to play around with all of that yet.
It's just scary. It really is. I mean, I just don't really know what else to really say except for that people just need to start speaking out. And I saw some people did try to speak out a long time ago, but then they stopped. So why did they stop? I don't know. Is it because they feel like if they kept going, Instagram's gonna take down their account? I mean, I don't know.
Well, yeah,
I feel like that it needs to be picked up by some of the the more mainstream horror sites, and I don't understand why they haven't, or some of the major the bigger name horror filmmakers and stuff, why they haven't started talking about this. I mean, Bloody Disgusting or Dead Central or something like that. I mean, for some reason usually they have horror news and stuff, and to me this is huge horror news, and for some reason the major horror news outlets are silent on it, and they're posting silly stuff about cats that look like the cat from Pet Cemetery and stuff like that, whenever this is something that is an attack on what umbrella they fall under, which is horror. And that's, to me, nothing's going to really change until the more main some of the not the hardline horror fans, but some of the other ones that don't research and constantly obsess over it, but just they read the articles from Bloody Disgusting and stuff like that. Until they actually see what's going on, I don't think it's going to change, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, because you had mentioned earlier that when you after putting in hashtag horror, and then when it goes to you click on show posts anyway, all the major posts show up. So I mean, the big timers are not really affected by it at all. It's like the people who let's see, are not, what's a good word, not as
Small.
big. Yeah, the small type. I mean, they're not affected by it. So I guess it's kind of like, why should they really be worried about it? Their news is gonna pop up regardless. Bloody Disgusting. What was the deadline? EW. Their news is gonna pop up regardless. Big time film directors and the most influential people, their stuff is gonna pop up, even after you click show post, all of that is gonna pop up. It's like people like us who are really affected by it. And I was also gonna say, it's already enough that sometimes you gotta jump through, loops to find a certain movie that you really want to see. Like, for instance, I like productions from Unearthed Films, and a lot of their titles are not available mainstream. A lot, like they say, you go into Vimeo, and even the titles, the full films are not even available on Vimeo, So it's like you already got to jump through holes to try and find that movie you really want to see, you're trying to watch and everything. So it's really tough when they're censoring horror.
Yeah. It's it just seems like it's gonna get worse, unfortunately.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like what really needs to happen is a full like online boycott. Not just a handful of people here and there, or a few people blowing up the inbox. I feel like it needs to be just like a full presence of boycotting. So a bunch of people just pretty much calling Instagram out, blasting Instagram. Why? You know what I'm saying? Just why? Hundreds or thousands of people need to blow up the inbox. You know what I'm saying? I feel like they can take accounts down, but you can always create a new account. It's nothing to create, a random email and account.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing about it. Like I found out, like, you know what I'm saying? There's people out here who has several, especially with Facebook. Facebook, is so restricting now. Like, your next post could be your last. You're in Facebook jail for 3 days here, 30 days there, a week. You know what I'm saying? Like, Facebook is constantly throwing people in, quote unquote jail for that harmless post that somebody else got offended over. You just create, a random email and a random account. It's that simple. So you got people out here with several accounts.
Exactly.
So it's like it's not the end of the world, even if your account did get taken down because you decided to, like, you know what I'm saying, kind of blow up Instagram. Just create a new account and keep it up. You know what I'm saying? It's endless. Like, you can create endless emails, endless accounts and everything. But I really do feel like, like I said, a whole boycott needs to be done. To really, really get Instagram's attention.
Yeah, it's just we just need to start speaking up louder, really, and that's really all I got left to say is that we just need bigger names and a lot more people to start speaking out to really start rumbling the ground.
If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to just throw it out there about Unlisted Owner again coming out on Blu-ray, and if anybody wants to get a copy, you can get it through Amazon, Walmart, FYE, all that good stuff. And we also have some pretty cool Unlisted Owner t-shirts. If you want to hit us up on the Unlisted Owner Facebook page or on our website, you can send us an email if you're interested in a shirt, or even hit me up on Instagram, of all places. But whatever you do, don't send the hashtag horror. I might not see it, but
yeah, right.
But yeah, it comes out April 30th. I'm not sure when you're going to drop this podcast, so it may be before then or after then. But either way, I'm sure we'll have copies available. And thanks again for having me on and discuss this urgent matter of hashtag horror and it being thrown into the horrible group of self-harm. So thanks again, Paul, for having me on, and thanks, Stacy, for joining me on this. It was great.
You're very welcome, Jed. It's always good to get different opinions on certain things, especially how this can affect not just me, but you and Stacy and everybody else. And because you know what, it's going to affect everybody, and the only way to do anything about it is just speak up.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm Stacy Cox, staff correspondent for DecayMag. That's DecayMag.com.
And remember, everybody, make sure you speak loudly, because otherwise us small guys are just not going to rise to the top.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we need to make that public, like I said, that public outcry, not just a few people or a handful of people. It needs to be enough people to actually make a difference.
And on that note, guys, thank you so much for listening to the 100th episode. And I hope you enjoyed this really sensitive topic where everybody needs to know this and everybody needs to speak up. And until next time, stay scary.